Good evening,
So,
your hosts of the weekly Sunday Roundtable. Today is the same set crew back together again. In the house is John Harton, Patrick McCarthy, Las Crawford, and our FBI agent coming online, Mr. Will Rattigan. I'm excited. I'm really excited, and I want to thank the listeners to this program. Last episode, I think we chalked up over 8,000 viewers, which is impressive. And we're gonna make mistakes, but as we go along, we'll figure it out. You know, we're not as up to standard like the other guys and all over YouTube. But what we try to do here at Waterhouse Vibe is to have a sensible discussion of issues impacting the working poor in Jamaica. We're not cursing anyone. We try to do our thing in a respectful way. Brothers, a lot happening in the news. As we see Philip Paulwell situation is getting very interesting. There's so much thing we can talk about. We see what's happening in Jamaican Parliament. But before we get into any of that, I want to talk with Mr. Rattigan because yesterday Mr. Rattigan had the leader of the opposition in Jamaica on his program. And it was very revealing. I'm not sure how many of you saw it. I did. Patrick, you heard the show. I'm not sure if John saw it or last saw it.
No, I don't get,
Right,
I don't get it. Yeah, I don't get the.
I never saw it. I was checking to see if it was
You
up. I
asked
don't know if Radigan put it up yet.
yesterday.
The leader of the opposition or the prime minister?
The leader of the opposition.
Opposition leader.
Okay.
Leader of the opposition, Mark Golden.
Yeah.
Mark Golden. He was on Rattigan program yesterday. Conversation. Rattigan.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Greetings, everyone. Greetings. Can you hear me?
Rattigan.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you sound
Is
like
that program up on the site? I don't see it on the thing. Reason Radigan. Is it up yet?
Yeah, man, it is up. It's on YouTube.
I don't see it in the.
It should be in YouTube.
Amongst the video lineup for the program.
What you need to do is if you subscribe to it, you can really click on the all on the bell and click all.
Get easier.
And then that will bring up all the live. The moment it go up live, you will get it.
I am subscribed, but I don't see it. I see all the other videos.
Okay, but before we do, all right, well, before we do that, before we do any of that, let me do this. Let me do this. Look at.
You're on Mikey, I don't hear anything.
So like him freeze.
Yeah, him freeze from the beginning, earlier too. So.
Oh, can you hear me?
No, I
Not
can't
you,
hear you.
Mikey.
I hear you.
Mikey, we can't hear him. Look like him freeze up.
Yeah, I think his internet moves slow or something. I'm not
Mikey, you have to pay rent, you know. You can't have this thing without the rent pay.
Can you? I don't understand you, John.
No, we were not hearing you. We're hearing you now. I was just teasing you to say that you have to pay your Wi-Fi service so you get internet. We're not hearing the video though.
Him gone again, him freeze up again.
Yeah, man, tell you, man.
Patrick, what you say, man?
Well, I'm there. Good show yesterday. Good show.
The man they want to kill me. Me get up on the phone about 4 or 5 hours early this morning. People upset, but I could care less. You know?
That's a very good interview, boss.
Can you hear?
You can't hear the video.
Can you hear? Can you hear what you said?
No, but we can't hear you. We can't hear the video.
You can't hear it?
No. You have to run a test on them thing before you bring it on.
Yeah, and you have to run it direct. If you're making us listen through your speaker, we're not going to hear it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see the program now.
Yeah, I could see it, but we couldn't hear it.
Yeah.
No, not you. Patrick Natak.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
John, if you go and if you look up Reason with Ratigan on YouTube, right?
Can you see it now?
What you're playing something different, Mikey, from Ratigan show.
Yes.
So which one are you referring to?
I'm trying to refer to the one I'm playing now.
That's
right?
about
this is what took place in Parliament.
That's about the Bail Act.
Mikey.
We can't hear it, Mikey. We can see it. Well, I can only speak for myself. I can't hear nothing.
And might keep freezing up too, so we're not hearing him constantly either.
Yeah. Freeze up.
Yeah, still freeze up, you know.
System probably can't deal with the media player and the streaming at the same time.
The committee noted that the Constitution makes no provision for the extension of the life of Parliament in the case of public emergencies, such as a pandemic. And we have so much to learn coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic.
No,
I hear it a little bit now, but it's very low.
Can you hear it though? Can you hear it?
Yeah, but it's very low.
Emergency rules. It agreed that where it is not practical to hold general elections due to circumstances created by or as a result of the occurrence of any earthquake, hurricane, flood, fire, outbreak of pestilence, infectious disease, or other calamity, whether similar to the foregoing or not, the life of Parliament should continue beyond its normal term for a period not exceeding 2 years in total. The committee further noted that the period of extension should be limited to one not exceeding 6 months in the first instance, and other periods not exceeding 6 months, up to a maximum by the President, acting on the advice of the Prime Minister, in consultation with the
It gone now completely.
What's the intention of this video, Mikey?
constitutional life of Parliament may only be has agreed that the life of Parliament could be extended when a public emergency arose. It agreed that where it is not practical to hold general elections due to circumstances created by or as a result of the occurrence of any earthquake, hurricane, flood, fire, outbreak of pestilence.
We're not hearing it as clearly, so maybe you go have to, do it, go about it another way, but we're not hearing it clearly.
Yes, but okay. This is a report of a discussion in the Constitutional Committee looking at the condition under which the life of the government can be extended. And they're saying that the Constitution did not address this issue. And I think that some folks in Kingston got concerned and became concerned as to what this means, Because we, in our history, we have the experience where government and other man create conditions to justify passing certain law. We know about the gun court. We know how that came about with Michael G. Smith behind Michael Manley. And this discussion remind some people that I wonder if we're going down that road again. The government create a crisis in order to extend the control, the whole land government. So it's out of that I receive this video about this discussion, I'm sorry you won't be able to hear the full discussion because I'm not sure what's happening here. But the question is, should we be worried? Should we be worried?
Let me ask you a technical question. Are you broadcasting it through speakers or are you connected directly to the video?
It's broadcasted from website, YouTube, not through speakers.
Right. What I mean is it's being broadcasted
through
directly,
this
like how you are being broadcasted, or is it going through the speakers of this what name?
StreamYard.
It's going through the audio. Yeah, going through there.
That's well, we're not going to hear that. It's going to have to come like a direct. You have to have a way to connect it directly in order for us to hear it.
We'll figure that out, John. But separate and apart from that this discussion, should we be worried that the government is making a preparation to move in a certain direction, or this is just idle talk?
Here's the thing. Here's the whole. Well, I guess the best way I can answer that question is there really is nothing for us to worry about, right? There's a tendency to worry as a first step, but my thing is that there's never anything to worry about, because by worrying it don't allow you to understand what's going on any better, right? We need to see things for what they are, right, and deal with it accordingly. That's how things work. That's how you that's the approach I think we should always take, right? analyze the situation as best we can, and then determine how we respond to it or what actions we take. Right? But it's never a situation to worry about anything.
Others, do you have any a take on this? Last Ratigan,
based on what I hear,
I send you the thing, Ratigan. That video.
What was that?
Go ahead, Last.
yeah, based on what I hear,
Do you have
it
a
sounds
take on
like it sounds like they're saying that, in the case of some kind of emergency that affects the life of the government, there's no provision in place to ensure that some government functions continue. I'm not so clear on what exactly they're talking about, but it seems like they're trying to address it in Parliament. So I'm not sure. I couldn't hear exactly what they were talking about from the video.
You can't hear me?
Yeah, okay, hear you.
Yeah. Ratigan?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Can you hear me?
John, can you fix the camera? Yeah.
You don't have to see me. You can't hear me, right?
All right. You can't hear me?
Yeah, Ratigan.
All right. I take a different view than Patrick. I take a different view than Patrick. And here is why. And Mr. Man, the last several months I've spent steeped in the Constitution. Section 20 of the Constitution says that a period of public disaster means any period during which there is in force a proclamation by the Governor General declaring that a period of public disaster exists. And I said a period of public emergency means any period during which, and the first provision there is Jamaica is engaged in any war. Now we're getting ready to send people to Haiti. That's going to be a bloodbath. I can see where they could use this to trigger that extension, considering also that we're on the cusp of an election, that they could use this to delay that election, especially if the polls continue to show in favor of the People's National Party, that the government could use this to say, all right, you know what, we're not going to call an election now. We have 2 years to push it off. And they push it off. I'm concerned about that because the question I ask myself is, why no? Why no? Go ahead. Nita, you can't hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I want to bring Mr. Herb Nelson into the discussion. And also, I can hear you.
Yeah, all right. So that's my point regarding the extension is that why now, and that the person who can declare that period is the Governor General, with whom we have deep suspicions, and the fact that Jamaica get a feedback. Nita. Something wrong with the system. Everybody can hear me?
Right, can you hear me?
Man, we can hear you.
Nita was coming.
Right. So to repeat, I'm concerned because first of all, the time.
I'm just into the conversation.
All right. Again, can everybody hear me?
Hello.
Yeah, we're hearing you.
Everybody hearing you except Nita.
Yes, man. Right? Yeah, man.
All right. Well, we have what? 2, 4, 6, 7 people on, and so I'm
You
speaking
know
for the
everything. You
benefit
know,
of 5.
I am hearing.
Okay, cool. So again, my first question is the timing. Second thing is the mandate. The timing, it's too close to election and it's too close to people being sent to Haiti. Second thing is that that's not one of the mandates of the constitutional committee. They have their mandate, and this was not this was not in the first what do you call it? Not tranche. It's not the first wave of amendments that they'd like to make. So I don't know where this is coming from. And so because I don't know, I start looking around and say, well, why would they bring this up now? I said, okay, they're getting ready to send people to Haiti. And there's an election. And the polls showing that they're behind. So if I were in their position, of course I would want this 2-year provision, because then I could just say, okay, we're in Haiti and it's a war. And so we don't have to do the election. We'll push it off. And then we'll push it off until better times, and then we call the election. So I'm very suspicious about this, and I have grave concerns about the extension. Yes.
I'd like to respond to that. All right. And my question is, if they should decide to use that, right, in terms of sending troops to Haiti, right, they're gonna run into serious problems with that. Because first of all, how much of a contingent can they really send to Haiti? They can't send a significant amount of soldiers to Haiti. They can't send 1,000 soldiers, for example. It would be ridiculous, right, for Jamaica for trying to attempt to send 1,000 soldiers. Kenya is already on the slate to send troops to Haiti, and they are meeting serious pushback from the Kenyan population right now over the issues. Using some of the same reasons that we have talked about, right? So if they try to use that, they're gonna run into a serious roadblock there, right? Because already Jamaicans are opposed to that, right? And we're not prepared for that kind of assistance to nobody. We can barely, manage a defense force to Jamaica. Because we really don't even have a clear definition for a defense force in Jamaica, right? So we have issues there already. So they really just can't use that. That's my take on that.
Patrick, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Jamaica designated something like 250 troops that they're sending to Haiti. And keep in mind that the officers from Kenya going to Haiti are police officers. So the combat troops, supposedly, that would be protecting them is actually Jamaicans, right? Because I think Jamaica is a mix of troops and police officers, right? But you do need a rapid deployment team in case officers get grabbed off the street to get them where they're going. And hopefully the U.S. will not only provide the intel, including satellites, but they will provide maybe some rapid deployment helicopters to get the guys from A to B without having to go through roadblocks that the Haitians set up, right? But before I go any further, gentlemen, let me introduce Chris Durant, retired Homeland Security investigator, spent 20-something years in the HSI, and they asked him to retire because he's just too handsome for the role. From what I understand.
That's funny. Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. You're very, very generous. Folks, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for inviting me, Herb, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on and just voice my opinion on the topics at hand, given my background and experience and what I have, my take on it. So I'm here to listen and to chime in as necessary. A pleasure to meet you all.
Same here.
Welcome. Thank you, brothers. Thank you.
What was the question that Mike introduced?
Well, the question he put out is that given a discussion which took place in Parliament, I think he sent that video to us earlier in the week, right? I don't know if you saw it, Herb. I want to think you
mean the one concerning where they want to extend the government time in service for 2 years while in case they declare an emergency.
Right, and at the same time as Ratty clearly point out that the Constitution doesn't make any provision for limitations on government. Yeah.
But just like how they changed the DPP's time that she can be in office.
Yeah, but the question Mike posed was, is it something we should worry about? Or I guess what he means is be overly concerned about. Right? And my take on it is no, is that something for us to be concerned about, because we know that they're gonna be trying to do all kinds of things, and the only thing we can do is, rather than worry, we really do a proper analysis of what they're doing and understand what they're doing, and in order to respond. But it's not something that would cause us to worry. Ratty's take on it is that, it could be something for us to worry about if they try to use it as a way to send troops to Haiti and use that as a reason to extend their time in government.
And here's why, Herb. Here's why I'm concerned about it, because if you look at the polls, they're trailing, right? They're trailing in the polls.
Yeah.
You look at the proposed tabling of the 6, and based on what we know so far, that there are going to be 6 people involved in government, not the opposition. So people are going to have to resign, or should. So, and then they're sending people to Haiti. So my take on it is that they could use this provision. And by the way, this has to be the final arbiter as to whether or not this will take place. The period of emergency, public emergency, is the Governor General, and we know how that person is acting in that role already. All right, that person is not acting in a responsible, objective manner. We believe that person is acting in a rubber stamp fashion, and I'm just afraid that they're going to use this to send people are going to Haiti, and the first sign of trouble, they're going to say, oh, now we're in a period of war, and therefore we have to suspend everything. And so now we're going into this period where we can extend the life of the government up to 2 years. I'm just afraid that possibility exists in my mind. I'm afraid that possibility exists, and that they could actually do it, because they have the numbers to do it in the House, but they don't have the numbers to do it in the Senate. But we saw what happened with the DPP. They waited for people to be outside the country, and then they just said, okay, we're going to have a meeting today, or we're going to vote on the issue today. And so the PNP, I gathered, was left short 2 people, and that's how they got the 2/3 vote in the Senate to pass this extension for this extension of up to 65.
The DPP.
Yeah. Well, they say it's not for the DPP. They say it's just because the Auditor General, I believe, she also benefited from it. So, and they said nobody's talking about the Auditor General. Well, hell, we're not talking about the Auditor General, because the Auditor General doesn't have the power to shut down investigations or decline prosecution, but the DPP does, and could, as far as the 6, including the previous speaker, are concerned. DPP could say, no, I don't find a case here, even though the corruption prosecutor says, yeah, let's move forward. So I'm concerned about this. And again, these people are tricky, man. So
here's what I would say. Here's what I would say, Radigan. The fact that they are looking at it means that, first of all, there's no emergency right now, right? And the fact that there's no emergency and they are looking at that tells you that they're thinking about something, right? There's something of concern to them in terms of, extending their stay. There's something of concern. We don't know. But I don't.
Right, but
I don't. Give me a chance. I don't think the Haiti situation would make it easy for them to use that provision. The reason I'm saying that is that I don't see us getting into a major situation in Haiti that would not we would not be able to withdraw our troops or withdraw our forces quickly out of that situation, or I just don't see that in the Haiti situation. But I understand what you are saying, Rattigan. There seems to be something that is bothering these people, because we have no emergency. There's nothing showing that an emergency is pending, right? So I mean, there could be some concern there.
Gentlemen, real quick question for you. Has the government provided any formal reason why we're sending JDF troops to Haiti?
no.
No?
Yeah.
What happened is that
What they've said is
there is a suggestion that a multinational force should be assembled.
Can everybody mute while he's speaking? See if we can stop this feedback.
Yeah, there has been a suggestion that a multinational force be assembled to assist the Haitians. I think it was at the United Nations that the suggestion was made, and the Kenyans agreed that they would lead that mission. And countries who are interested could send troops as part of that contingent. But outside of that, the government has not provided anything to say why they have come to that decision to send troops. Regarding the local situation and our capabilities, they have not said anything in that regard.
That's a question that should be asked, though, right? I mean, to let them know what is their official reason, what's the formal reason that they're saying, besides the fact that, we want to be a part of a contingent to assist Haiti. We get that, but there should be more to it. And also, what are the circumstances under which the JDF is going to participate? There has to be some kind of like equivalent of status of forces agreement, you know what I mean? How they're going to operate within that realm. And I think that's something important to know as well, that you should let the public know. Well, you're putting our folks in harm's way, so to speak. Yes, we're assisting on this very important mission to assist Haiti, but the public needs to know, just in what manner and for how long, etc., and the deeper reasons why. It's my opinion. We should know that.
all right. Here's the thing. The Constitutional Reform Committee, they're responsible for coming up with amendments to the Constitution. And the first thing that they're planning to do is to get rid of this constitutional monarchy type government and replace it with a republic, right? They have no mandate at this point to extend or to offer provision to extend the government under public emergency. So like Laz says, we're concerned about where is this idea coming from at this point, because that's not their mandate. Look, their mandate is to determine the type of government we're going to have and the powers and the responsibilities and the roles of a president, which at this point they can't even they can't explain to people. That's the first thing that they're there to do. They can't explain that, but then they move on. I'm going to say, okay, we want to extend the government in case of public emergency. Nonsense. Second thing is, here's why I'm suspicious about this government. If you recall, what they did, they amended the Constitution to extend the service of the DPP and the Auditor General to 65. Why? They said because there's a Public Service Act that says that certain public servants can go up to 65. What they forgot is that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and all other laws must conform to that. You don't bring the Constitution down to be in alliance or to be in alignment with a local law. If anything, it should be, hey, the Constitution says 63, so guess what? The Civil Service Act should say 63 or 65. But they actually brought the Constitution on, which is nonsense. Third thing, how they achieved the 2/3 vote in the Senate. They waited for people to leave. Fourth thing, CARICOM. Where is CARICOM in all of this? We have a regional body that is responsible for taking care of all of us, and CARICOM is noticeably absent. They're bringing people from all the way to East Africa, come all the way over to Haiti, and yet still we have and Haiti is part of CARICOM. Fifth thing, they offer they offer a reason behind trying to get involved. Actually, several reasons. One of them is regional stability. Second is that they said we want to help our neighbors. And the third thing offered recently, a few days ago, by the one of the deputy commissioners of police, was that, oh, they're going there for gang busting. They're going there for gang busting. Jamaica have more than
freeze up.
I think what he meant to say, Jamaica has more than 200 plus gangs.
Yeah, I know.
Trying to say that we have enough gang busting to do at home alone than to go foreign to find that, right?
Mm.
Rat is still frozen.
Yeah, exactly. But you're nothing. That thing left out. Is that you never mentioned about the political climate in Jamaica as well, which don't allow for them to, readily make that kind of move. Oh, Ratty's back. I was saying to you, Ratty, the point that you left out when you start to break it down is that you left out the point of the political climate in Jamaica, which is definitely not in their favor, right?
Correct.
For them to make such a move.
Correct. And as I was saying, they have over 200 gangs they've identified. And just the other day, they had a conviction of the leader of the one other gang, right? But what they forgot to tell the people, 18 gang members were acquitted. 18 gang members were acquitted, right? A few were convicted. So if you can't handle crime in your gang crimes in your country, how the hell you gonna go do it in a country where, one, you don't know the terrain, two, you don't understand the language, three, you don't understand the culture, four, you're up against trained former military people who are well armed. What chance do you have there of success? What are your chances of success?
5, they know nothing about it.
Yeah. When I listen, sorry. Feedback also.
Everybody mute.
Yeah, when I listen to that video, I think the big issue is not so much what reason can they use to declare this public emergency, but whether it's is being considered. They made a point in that video about the COVID. They could also use it for a problem with crime in Jamaica. I don't see the reason. In other words, going to Haiti is not so much the question as to whether they have the means, the political means at the present time to institute something like that. And that's where I agree with those who say it's dangerous. It's worrisome. I don't like that word, but it appears to me that long before it's needed, they are going to put in place the legal ability to do it. They're not going to wait until a crisis occurs and say, we're going to amend the Constitution for this. They're going to do it before they need to make that amendment, so that if they're going to give several reasons. In Jamaica, one reason is crime. Another reason is hurricane. A third reason is COVID, which gone. I mean, we don't anticipate another outbreak. But the point is, do they have the means to do it with a parliament of 46 to 14? They do have the means to do it, and a rubber stamp governor general. They do have the means to do it. So I would take the position that it's something to oppose rather than debate the reason that they may give. They don't need to give a good reason. This is not, I mean, given their situation, they don't have to give a good reason. What is the likelihood of it being protested? It will be protested, but to what extent? And our duty should be to warn the people, the public, of this possibility, and to be opposed to it without, unless we have very clear guidance as to what would be considered. I don't see nothing that would be considered acceptable for a 2-year period. You know, so they can say, all right, we're going to extend the government, and instead of doing it for 1 year, we put it to the maximum. So that's how I read this. I don't see this as us. We shouldn't be debating the reason. They may give any frivolous reason. The question is this something that they are looking to do? And it appears to me that there is enough red flags or yellow flag, whatever you want to call it, that it is something that they would be considering. And given their majority, the main reason being that calling the election on time could result in a worse fate for them than delaying the election until the situation, until they feel that they can improve the political situation. So that's my own little pound of flesh on this one. I'm not sure if everybody heard me or is just
we're thinking.
Where your take, Lass?
Yeah, as I said, the fact that there's no emergency now and they're thinking about that means that, for me, that they have their sights on something or some possibilities. And as John and Radigan say, the worrisome part of it is the history that they have given us about how they operate, right? The fact that they were willing to go like thief in the night with the extension of the director of public prosecutions. I mean, that's a red flag, you know, which say you can't totally trust this government, right? And from you can trust them, and you see them doing some things, you have to highlight it, you know, whether or not it is a real possibility at this time or it's something in the distance. I mean, we have to highlight it and make people aware that this is a possibility, whether distant or it's a near possibility.
As far as an emergency, I think there's an emergency right now, and that emergency, because think about it, if they wanted to do this, they could have done this right after COVID, right? Or they could have done it during COVID, just say, and people would have agreed with it during that time period, saying, hey, we didn't prepare for this, and it's here now. So in the future, let's go ahead and do it. People would have agreed with it then. But look at when they're doing it. They're doing it when they're down in the polls. They're doing it when they're down in the polls. And they're doing it when they don't even have a mandate to do it. They should be, look, they asked a question of the chairperson of the Constitutional Reform Committee, the Honorable Minister Malahou for. They asked her, what were the powers and the role and the responsibility of the president, this president that you're talking about? And she couldn't answer. And that's her primary mandate at this point. What powers will we invest in a president of our country? Should we decide to go that route? And it looks like we're going that route. That's a primary concern. She don't worry about that. She worry about, hey, we need to get an extension of the government. And if you just look at the timing, and if you look at the polls, I mean, it's clear to me why they're there. I mean, it might not be clear to a lot of people, but to me, I think I'm right on this one. I think I'm clear.
You know, Radigan, as you talk, I am just looking at my notes last week about the news. And one of the things that I saw from last week in my notes was, some thing from Malahou Fort criticizing the Jamaican public and people who are having things to say about the Constitutional Committee. What she was saying is that people are trying to take the Constitutional Committee off course.
And
Meaning, last week she said that. I mean, falling in line with exactly what you're saying. This was not part of the mandate of the Constitutional Committee. And last week she said, right, people in the country are making deliberate effort to blow the committee off course, right, in pursuing its mandate. She just said that last week. So it more now comes into play. If she was saying that last week, that people are trying to blow the Constitutional Committee off course, away from its mandate, why introduce this thing that come almost out of the blue? Isn't this trying to take the Constitutional Committee off course and against its mandate? This now raises some more concern after looking back at my notes from last week, because it seemed, where did this thing come from? What prompted this? Is this off course thing, or this attached to the mandate that was set? I'm a little bit more concerned now.
Trust me on this one when I tell you that. You put money on it. Put money on it when I tell you that. This is the reason why they're doing it. They're down in the polls, and so they have to come up with something. And so they're looking at, okay, what's the what's the alternative? If we're not ahead, and it looks like, and we're coming close to that point where we have to call election, then what can we do? Oh, extend it until better times. So what we do is we call a state of public emergency, and then we have the Governor General proclaim it, sign off on it, and then that's it. No election. And keep in mind that this government has a history of postponing elections. Keep that in mind. They have a history of postponing elections. For example, local elections. When should that have called? That should have called what? 2020, I believe. And here it is that we're still here and no local election date in sight. So I rest my case, sir.
It's one thing I wanted to.
On that note, I'm going to beg to excuse to avoid the problem like last time. I beg, I believe,
Yeah, man. All right, John.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, take care, John.
Yeah, man. Take care.
Walk good.
All right. God go with you.
Take care, John. Have a good one, man.
All right, John. Good seeing you again.
Yes, sir. Same here.
Nita, where you gone?
I don't
Well,
know.
Nita just come and
I don't know
go.
what happened to Chris either. It's like
No. I'm right here, but I'm off camera. One moment. I'm right here listening.
Okay. All right.
Nita,
Listen,
what are your excuses?
one of the things I want to bring to everybody's attention. There was a point in the last 6 months or so where the Haitian police themselves rioted in Port-au-Prince, blocking road and inflicting considerable damage on the airport and the Prime Minister's residence, as they unsuccessfully attempted to confront the Prime Minister. And what enraged them was the killing of 14 officers. And they feel that the Prime Minister was not doing enough to support them. So the question now is, you have an unruly police force that lacks discipline. You're going to bring over 1,000 Kenyans down that is being accused of brutality in Kenya. All right. What is going to happen if there's any indifference sparked? Again, these are not French-speaking Kenyans. What happens if there's some indifference between the Kenyans and the 10,000 Haitian National Police officers? Right? What happens if that sparks a situation that puts the Jamaican and a small 50-man force from Barbados and 50-man from Antigua and Barbuda smack in the middle? Right? Because this is not a situation that you are going in and you're joining a very disciplined force that's been there fighting and need relief. This force has shown it's indiscipline. Not only is it indiscipline, but they have a lot of folks. They were 15,000 strong, and they have a lot of people who quit and started going to the U.S. Embassy asking for visas to get out of Haiti. So if you have a force now that's decimated by 1/3, you have to ask the question, how do you trust the integrity of that force to be there, to be your backup, and not turn tail and run when push comes to shove?
But that take us back to the back to the point Chris made earlier, which we have raised this before too, is how senseless it is to be thinking about going to Haiti without any clear mission as well, right? Because we don't know what we'll be going there to do in light of everything, the very little that we know, right, and all that we don't know, right? So that's where it takes us right back to that number one question, which we can't move beyond that.
Well, the approval now for the mission has been given by the UN, right? And the UN is saying that the overall troop deployment is to restore the peace and tranquility to the Haitian public. Well, in all honesty, the area of concern is the capital, Port-au-Prince. It's not entire Haiti and the millions of people, the 11 million people in Haiti that are involved. It might be 3 million people in Port-au-Prince, but that's still a lot of people that you have to deal with. A lot of gangs, and there's one particular organization that has recently been attacking the gangs and killing and burning the bodies of gang members. So you have to ensure that they are neutralized as well as the gangs are neutralized. Yeah. Now, if you end up shooting one person, it may not be an issue. But if you end up shooting 10 people in a particular neighborhood, it might be a big deal, right? What is it going to spark? So you do need your intelligence on the ground to keep the deployed folks well informed. And you do need to have the ability to move, shoot, and communicate without having to go through the streets of Port-au-Prince, which are overly crowded and you're subject to ambushes, right? So you have to have some really super support, which would mean that you would have to ferry the troops by helicopter. All right, Black Hawk helicopters from the US or from Canada, and move them from point A to B in a rapid fashion. So that should be the coverage that Canada and the US should be committed to. All right. And those helicopters, by the way, are going to have anti-fire countermeasures like chaff and maybe some chain guns on it themselves to return fire in a particular area if they're taking a lot of fire.
But all that you're saying, Herb, all that you're saying is only confirming even more the reason why we cannot be a party to that. Because if all they have to go on is the fact that it's been approved by the UN, right?
Yeah.
My conclusion is that it is something that the US is putting us up to in terms of trying to keep the government in place, which basically would mean standing between the government and their own police force, right? Or their own security force, which clearly cannot make sense. We still don't know who we're fighting. If we only we'll be looking at protecting Port-au-Prince, right? It don't make sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. It makes no sense.
But
we don't know the real situation in Haiti. We have never been a part of it, right? It's not a situation we have been following with any authentic, links and logistics and all of that, right? We know nothing, absolutely nothing about Haiti, right? How are you gonna start a war which you don't even know how to fight?
Well, it's not that they're gonna go there to start a war. You want to make sure that they go there as an interventionist team.
And you don't know what you're intervening into. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right? You don't go to intervene with guns and say you're not going there to fight. Right?
Well,
It
they're
just
gonna have
doesn't
to
make
order
sense.
people to stay home and then pre-position troops in strategic areas where they have to regulate the movement of people and traffic. Well, it's not like COVID lockdown when nobody can leave their homes. These people should be able to leave their homes, especially if they have to work, especially if they're doing some kind of hustle. Question is, how are you going to deal with those folks? If you order them to stay in place, then you're going to have to go feed them, right? You have to ensure that they have subsistence. But if you tell them they can move around, then that's going to create a problem, because now you're going to have people on foot, on bicycle or motorcycle or cars.
But in less of a situation than this, we have seen disaster in Haiti when it comes to peacekeeping forces going there.
Yeah.
Right? In a lesser situation than it is now. Right? In a situation where we knew more about what was happening in Haiti on the ground on a regular basis. Now we don't know, right? And we're still talking about sending troops in or sending forces in. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. No, however we try to slice and dice it, it makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, this is not the Kenyans' first tango, right? Remember, the Kenyans fight against another extremist group, one that Al-Shabaab, one that attack and kill people in a Kenyan mall. The Kenyans go after them in Somalia. They've been after them within that area of Kenya that borders Somalia. So you have a very experienced police force that deals with countermeasures for terrorism, right? But Jamaica, like you say, has no experience dealing with countermeasures for terrorism. So you're gonna have more or less their introduction. Well, if you count 2010 and the incursion in Tivoli as experience, that's the worst scenario Jamaica has seen, right?
Herb,
That is some experience.
Herb, let me just share something with you. Somebody just sent me this. It says that I'll read it to you. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, says the government will seek funding from external sources to support its commitment to send manpower to assist with its security mission in Haiti. The United Nations Security Council recently authorized a year-long Kenyan-led multinational security mission for Haiti. Do you believe this nonsense?
I think
Jamaica
I
commitment.
know where you're going with that.
Well, the external source is the U.S. So they started drawing
No, but
down
it
money
goes back,
from the U.S.
but it goes back to the question though. Why? Who's behind this? You know what I mean? Now we know who's behind this. Because you don't get up and say, I'm gonna go fight out, I'm gonna send troops over there and go, oh, wait a minute,
Right.
who will ever fund it? Somebody is behind this.
Yeah. Don't forget, we were the first to volunteer also. The very first.
So what is clear is that they have not come out and say what exactly they're going to be doing in Haiti, whether they will be doing policing duties in the streets, whether they'll be going after criminal gangs in some kind of rapid force kind of situation.
Yeah.
But it is clear that they have probably worked out their thing, probably not with us, but with the backers like the United States, probably Canada, wherever. It's just that they're not telling us, the people, what they're doing. Right? The fact that they must have known where their funding is coming from before now, right, to make that commitment. So, the important thing is that they are not leveling with the people of Jamaica.
The thing about that though, Lass, is that you're absolutely right? But the thing about that is what makes it smell so stink. Because when it's something that you can't even come out and say to the people, you know that it cannot be anything of any good.
If what Will is saying, that they're gonna do this to use it they would have to create a further situation on the island and say, hey, we have a state of emergency, our guys are deployed, and we have this problem back here, we can't have any elections, therefore we're gonna have to extend our time until there's a good time to have elections, right? Now that they probably could try it that way. That's the most logical thing for them to do. They would get the backing of the U.S. because they are deployed, and the U.S. wouldn't want anything to upset that apple cart, right? I don't know what the reaction of the UK would be. Normally, they would be in line with the US. And so you're right, that would be a pretty dangerous time for the country. Because, if people are sick and tired of the GLP up to that point, it could really... some of the PNP folks who are more radical could spark something and cause a situation to get out of control. Yeah, I don't see nobody sitting for another 2 years waiting for Haiti to straighten out and for Jamaica and the JLP to get their act together. I just don't see that.
Also think about this, right? They take up to 2 years, they say, and let's say at the end of the 2 year period, they're still engaged with Haiti. The question then is, do they get another extension, or do they have to call an election in the middle of what's going on with Haiti? So they have to think of these things to.
That's a very important point, Will, because I was just thinking about that if they decide to do what they're doing and push it for 2 years, right? The other side to that coin is everybody else gonna sit back and watch this thing play out for 2 years? Are people gonna push the PNP to take to the streets? And if the PNP doesn't, then it's gonna be the people taking to the streets over the issue. It's gonna bound to lead to unrest. Not with this trajectory they're on. There'll be possibly anything happening in the streets. I don't wanna use any phrases, but
I think though, if the fact that their support is declining so fast, I think if they did that, it would, I don't know what they would be thinking to do something like that, because I don't think it would help them politically. Believe me, I think it would only make the people more militant, right? Now the people are quiet, right? Kind of subdued and laid back. I think if they push the people that far to cement themselves in power for another 2 years against the backdrop of the polls sliding, I think it would just inflame the people and be worse for them. I don't know. They might be considering it, but I don't think it would be a good political decision for them.
That's interesting because here in the chat, people are saying, by right, Andrew Holness and his cabinet should come forward and let the people know the truth. But what we're saying is they would be setting the people of Jamaica up to do this. And the truth becomes the victim, right? They would be doing something that's favorable to the USA. The USA want more bodies on the ground, so they might even convince Jamaica to add more to that 200 plus, maybe bump it up to 1,000. Keep in mind that Jamaica has they declared, well, the declaration I saw is 6,000 self-defense forces. 6,000. So how
you're getting low, Herb?
Huh?
Your voice dropping. We're not hearing you clearly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I said Jamaica has 6,000 self-defense forces. And
that's the reserves.
With the reserves, yes.
Oh, combined, yeah.
Combined. Yeah, it's 4,500 active, I think, and around 1,500 reserves. Yeah. Michael, if you're out there, Chris need to get back in. Yeah. But basically, Michael should give somebody co-host so that they can control things.
Yeah, I think Michael facing some problems. But gentlemen, I think we really should, stop spinning our wheels trying to make sense of nonsense, because, the fact of the matter is that this government, we can't determine how much this government even knows what is truth anyway, right? So it is the reason why we are where we are at, because they are so distant from the truth, right? That they probably don't even know what truth is at this point.
Well,
I think we probably should. You're saying something, Herb?
No, I was gonna say the bottom line is this is the U.S. wants to be the policeman of the world, especially the Western Hemisphere, and the U.S. would be the one setting things in motion, right? So the U.S. has more or less made a request of Jamaica. Nobody else in CARICOM. They made a request of CARICOM, I should say. And Trinidad is the leading agency for security in CARICOM. And Trinidad is not even involved in this. Them don't want no parts of it. So the question then is, why would the Prime Minister take this up on his head when the lead agency, Trinidad, wants no part of it? You know,
And we already spoke to that. We already gave the clear answer for that, right?
Yeah.
It would be a distraction, from what is actually going on right now, and probably, as Ratty say, a move to cement themselves in power for another year or 2 year, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we probably kind of exhaust this topic though.
Yeah.
The topic that Mike had was about the Integrity Commission report. I think that was the main topic that he wanted to discuss. I don't know what the introductory thing, whether he had any introductory thing on that.
Did anybody look at that? What that report was, or the discussion around it?
Radigan, were you aware of the Integrity Commission report to Parliament this week?
Yeah. One second. Yeah, the table. No, they didn't table it. They provided the President of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, and the clerk with the report. The Integrity Commission did. And what they also did was they made it public. They put out a letter, and I guess they're trying to apply pressure. And they said we would like the report to be tabled like expeditiously. So now there's a certain amount of pressure now on the House and the Senate to table the thing. Now, Tom Tavares Finson, the President of the Senate, he made an announcement that on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, he's going to table the report in the Senate. It's gonna be interesting to see what he's going to table, because I don't know because remember there has been reporting that the people under investigation are 6 parliamentarians and more than 24 civil servants. I don't know if the Integrity Commission submitted one report containing all the investigations, or they made one submissions with several reports. I have to go back and look at it, and I just saw it a while ago, the letter that they sent. I'll get to it. But what I'm thinking is that if they sent the recommendations in one submission, meaning that several reports came in at the same time, delivered at the same time, that it's possible that they could say, okay, what we're going to table is we're just going to table the public servants. We're going to table that, and then for the others, we'll just hold on to that for a bit, and then have people get all spun up about the 35 or whatever, and then all of a sudden that's the story, and then the 6, it's not the story.
Background issue.
Exactly, and then all of a sudden, and then the DPP quietly just dismiss them, and then nobody knows anything, and then people start saying, hey, what happened to the 6? Well, the DP made a decision 6 months ago, and declaration. And it's too late. What are you going to do at that point? It's too late. So
okay.
Go ahead, Patrick.
So basically what you're saying is that we're looking at likely another spin, the same spin.
So 4 o'clock is the rush hour.
Look, it may not happen,
4 o'clock
but
is
you have
the
to be
rush.
prepared for it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You have to just be prepared
All
for
right.
everything.
All right.
You can't trust this government. You cannot say, well then, oh yeah, they're going to do what's ethical, what's right,
Okay.
what's legally sufficient.
All right,
It can't trust them. It cannot trust them.
It's
all right,
clear.
thank you.
It's clear.
Yeah,
All
and
right,
so I'm
thank you, man.
fearful that they'll just give you some red meat to feed on, and then you don't hear anything about the 6, and because it's 35, they can drag it up, play all kind of games with the 35, and before you know it, it's 6 months down the road. And then the DPP, there is nothing in the Constitution that says that she has to make a public declaration that she won't, she's declined prosecution, or she's taken over the prosecution and she's declined. There's nothing in the Constitution. There's nothing in the Integrity Commission Act. So
in other words, the DPP is not accountable to us.
No. And so she could do this privately. When I say privately, outside the glare of the public, right? And nobody would know until when they finish with the 35, 6 months, a year from now, people say, "Hey, what happened to the 6?" And then they say, "Oh, the DPP declined prosecution a while back." And so that's that. So, like I said, it may not happen, but you just have to be prepared. And I'm hoping, I guess we're all hoping that whatever was submitted to Parliament last week will be tabled in full. You don't separate it, you just table the whole thing in full so that people can say the 6 and the 35 or whatever the number is. People can see, and then they move from there. Now, here's what's interesting. What's interesting is if big IF underscore bolded, if the PM and his wife are involved, are included in the group of 6, will they resign?
What are your thoughts on that? Because I have some.
Wait a second, Michael. Can you bring Chris back in? Michael, can you hear?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You're going in and out. You're going in and out.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Apologize. I had to reach out to T. Said to me, congested time. And what Rattigan just touched on, initially I wanted to raise.
I don't think he heard you, Herb. Mikey, stick up
the
in.
question he asked.
You're breaking up, Mikey.
Yeah.
Michael, can you hear us?
Go ahead.
No, can you hear us? That's what we want to know. Can you hear us?
Herb was asking you if you can bring Chris back in.
But here's the problem, Mike. You were coming in breaking up, so we were not getting everything that you were saying.
Bring Chris back in, Mikey.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring Chris in.
Okay.
Yeah, but we weren't hearing you either. We weren't hearing you clearly.
I tried to bring.
We finally, I think your thing clear enough now.
Yeah, because T-Mobile told me that between 4 neck of the wood.
Yeah, the only solid broadcasting you can get is
you guys hearing me?
Carriers.
Yeah, we're hearing you, but you're still breaking up a little.
All right, go ahead. I'll listen to the discussion. Go ahead.
Yeah. Ratty, with reference to the commission.
Rattigan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Send a charger for me. Charger. Mm-hmm. All right.
Mike, you were saying something. We
Las, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing.
Las.
Yeah, man, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you. You don't seem to be hearing.
I was okay. Okay, I was saying that Rattigan touched on a very important question when he asks what gonna happen if the among the 6 on that document. I can tell you that that is done just now.
No, it's my phone.
Because the view is that
Android.
the Prime Minister will be forced to resign.
Charge. That's enough a car to charge.
Would offer an early election becomes a real possibility. I'm not. What if he refused to resign? What next?
Yes, so he's speaking to the same thing, Ratty, which you have to respond to. I don't know if you got what Mikey was saying.
Yeah, what if he doesn't resign?
What if he refused to resign?
Right.
Well, so it's going to, what is your perspective on that situation?
Well, if he doesn't resign, then the people must seek their permits and the people must take to the streets. Because you cannot have you cannot have Speaker Dalrymple resign as a result of this. And then you turn around and say, well, no, the Prime Minister, particularly if the charge, but it doesn't matter whether the charges are the same or more serious, he has to resign. But I suspect that if he's on the list, based on the fact that they haven't verified his last 2 or 3 statutory declarations, tells me that there's some serious charges are going to be there. And if that's involving financial matters, and if that's the case, then he has to step aside, and not his wife also has to step aside. Now the problem is that, do they have a continuity plan? Do they have a continuity plan? Who's going to take over if his wife and if the Prime Minister and his wife have to leave?
You think that's the emergency they're planning for? That's a real possibility.
That's a good point.
That's a real possibility.
Ratty. Come on, Ratty. I'm still waiting for your perspective on this.
You mean whether he showed it?
No. What's likely to happen?
Oh.
What likely to happen?
What's likely to happen if their names are on the list?
I think they would go for an early election.
I don't think so.
No, they can't go for an early election with this cloud hanging over them. They can't.
My belief.
So what are your thoughts? What do you think is likely to happen?
But it depends. It depends on what? On the election, or on them resigning, or what?
What moves will they make? What moves are they likely to make once this becomes public that their names are on the list?
No, it depends. All right. No, it depends.
Let's say that their names are on the list. Right? Once it becomes public, what are they likely to do?
No. What are they likely to do depends on what the advisors are telling them. So if you ask me if I'm advising him,
No. I'm not asking if you're advising them. All I'm saying is, right, that if their names are on the list, right, then that only worsens the situation for them right now. Right. Automatically. Right. Because already they are suspected as, being highly involved in the corruption and everything anyway. Right. So if it so happens that this becomes public, that their names are on the list, right, I'm thinking that their next move would be one to try to save themselves as best they can, right? And I have some ideas about what they might try to do, right? But I was asking you first if you want to share any ideas.
Right. The way I view it, I'm trying to think whether I should do it from the perspective of like advising them, because look, they're not going to make any moves without talking to people. They're not going to just get up and just say, they're going to gather. They're going to gather around.
Definitely.
They're going to gather around circular wagons, and then what they're going to do is decide, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to say? What are the optics and whatnot? And they're going to take into consideration the fact that the 9-day wonder, and there's so many distractions going on. So I think that if the names are if their names are on it, I think they're going to take some time. I don't think they're just going to get up and say, okay, because remember now, they're the ones tabling it, so they have the benefit of time to figure out, okay, what are we going to do before we table it? They have until, let's say, Wednesday. So they have all of today, all of tomorrow, all of Tuesday to decide, okay, what's our next plan? If they decide not to go, they have to come up with some reason. They can't say, well, we're not going anywhere. We're just going to stay here, because it's an allegation. And under the criminal statutes, people are presumed innocent until proven guilty. And we are innocent, so we're not going anywhere. All right? They could say that. And that would be a perfectly legal stance to take. Right? Because that's why we have courts.
Hear my view.
Minister Camilla Johnson-Smith, you can try her case in the public because it's open and shut. But the other cases, go ahead.
Your argument rests on the assumption that the JLP is united. Any course of action is going to require unity amongst the ranks, the JLP ranks, either around wholeness or unity around Tufton. You agree?
Well,
go again.
I said any move the JLP make, whether to hold on to office, resign, or go to election, is going to depend a lot on the forces organized around the different individual. Right now, you can see there's a sort of skirmish between Tufton, who is for Tufton, and who is for wholeness. And in the middle of that, you have the private sector. If this document come out with their names among the 6, the private sector will have something to say about the matter.
Yes, Mikey, but hear what I think. I'm looking at Dalrymple's strategy. Dalrymple's strategy failed because she never recused herself. But the major part of her strategy is that she wanted to push it to some other committee, right? To look at it and to drag it out. They would have some deliberation today, some deliberation tomorrow, and deliberation next week. And then when that don't work, they send it to another committee for further deliberation. That was the strategy. That was the strategy. Give me a little time. That was the strategy of Dalrymple, right? And I think that will be the strategy of Wholeness and his wife if they are on the thing. The only reason why Dalrymple thing failed was because somebody else did not employ that strategy, right? If Dalrymple had allowed somebody else to employ that strategy, Dalrymple might have still been around, and that report would be floating from one committee to the next and buying them some time. Remember.
Let me say something to you. I hear that argument, but this woman is looking at possible criminal charge of fraud. There's a case involving a woman who died up here, and her property would transfer, land would transfer.
You talk about the Clark case.
Yes, the Richard Clark, and that is an ongoing, that's a nasty thing for them.
But Dalrymple was fraud too.
Yeah, and she's the one involved in that.
Yes, so I'm saying, the polls are falling for them. They're gonna buy time. They're not gonna just lay down and die and say, you know what? These people say the Integrity Commission says this about me. Okay, I'm gonna walk away and make the Jamaican people do what they want. They're not gonna do that, I don't think. Right? They're gonna do the same kind of thing that Dalrymple tried. They're gonna try moving the report from committee to committee to buy them time and drag it out. right? And they would still be in power, at least for some time. Probably if they are successful in that kind of strategy, they can drag this out for a good period of time.
Now, keep this in
No.
mind that on our other program, Reason with Ratigan, we discussed the Governor General duties. And part of those duties was if there's a corrupt government, the Governor General, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ratigan, the Governor General has the ability to dismiss the government and ask Mark to form a new government. It comes down to that.
The
So
Governor General is a semi
But that's not a real possibility right now. I don't see a government or the present Governor General taking. That would be like a revolutionary position the Governor General taking. We cannot expect that. We cannot expect that from the Governor General at this time.
And I want to hear me. The Governor General is a Seventh-day Adventist. The Commissioner of Police is a Seventh-day Adventist. Holiness is a Seventh-day Adventist.
So no, but here's the thing. What Herb says is absolutely correct. Under the Constitution, and we all talk about the Constitution except when it's supposed to be utilized. We talk about it in the abstract, and then when we say, "Oh, here it is," the Constitution. But that's the document that governs our everyday lives, right? And under the Constitution, the Governor General could say, "You know what? There's dissension in the ranks. I don't like the way Parliament is going. I'm going to dissolve it." Right? There's another word, prorogation, which you can suspend it. But then there's another one where you can just dissolve it. And once it's dissolved, guess who gets to pick the next prime minister after the dissolution? The Governor General. Exactly. So, but here's the thing. Going back to Lasse's point about the Dalrymple's strategy, Speaker Dalrymple's strategy. She wanted to send it to two committees. She wanted to send it to the Ethics Committee and the Oversight Committee, right? The Ethics Committee is only there to adjudge behavior, right? To say, okay, you violated certain tenets of the scope of behavior allowed, within our body, and therefore we're going to suspend your blah 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 blah. That has nothing to do with what Integrity Commission report is saying, because the Integrity Commission report actually is almost like an indictment. It's saying we have enough to move forward, and the prosecutor is saying I want to go. And based on what I've read in the Constitution and in the Integrity Commission, the act, she doesn't need anything else. And once it's tabled, they just put it on the docket. It's done. But the idea of sending it to a committee, an ethics committee, that it's of no moment. It shouldn't go there. The second committee she mentioned is the Oversight Committee. It's interesting because she chairs the Speaker of the House chairs the Oversight Committee, and the Oversight Committee is only responsible for the operations of the Integrity Commission. So, for example, they look to say, okay, are you properly funded? Are you properly resourced? Things of that nature. Not to question your recommendation.
Strategy, man.
Yeah, it's just there for administrative purposes. That's what it's there for. But then they say we're going to send it over there. So what they should do, the Magnitsky, that's something that Urban and I, we have been talking to a lawyer in Washington, D.C. about that, and it's a possibility that could be applied. But then, look at the last two words, corrupt government. They're going to say that they're not corrupt. You have to prove it. And when you say corrupt government, are you talking about the government itself or just individuals? So we have to explore that a bit further. But Lasses, your point is well taken, that it's a strategy. That they say we're going to send it there. They know it's not supposed to go there. They know that. But they say we're going to send it there and buy time. But here's the thing. Programs like this program have caused an awakening of the people in Jamaica, because people in Jamaica heretofore didn't even know some of these things we're talking about, and we're enlightening them. And it's not just one person talking, it's a whole bunch of people, whole bunch of us talking in Jamaica, but mostly outside Jamaica.
Here's the extension to your point, to that very point you just made, because that's all I've been thinking about, just sitting here, is that all of these things are notes, right, for the constitutional, what they call constitutional reform. It really doesn't need to be no reform. You need a real constitution. That's really what it is, right? And that is what everybody has been trying to brush aside to make it look as if, no, that's going to take too much work. That's going to take too much and so on. That's the very reason why we need it. That's the very reason why we need it. Because we don't need to rush anything and we don't need to do anything, right, as any patchwork, right? Because everything that is happening is clearly telling you that these things happen because of this nonsense that we have, which we call a constitution, right? Something which was handed to us. I didn't want to press the MP last week about it, right? Because this wasn't really the platform to do that. But this is the crux of the whole matter. So I hope everybody really taking them notes, right? Because everything takes us directly back to the Constitution.
Here's how I view the Constitution, gentlemen, and listening audience. It's like you have a car, you decide one day, you have a Toyota Corolla, just for the sake of the conversation. And you decide, I'm going to turn this into a racing car. And so you shoe on a supercharged engine in it, and then you say, okay, I'm ready. No, you're not ready. What about your brakes? What about your cooling system? What about your transmission? What about this? What about that? What about that? And that's what they're doing with the Constitution. They're tinkering with it and say, okay, we're going to fix it, and so we're going to have a beautiful Constitution. Hell no, because that Constitution was not written for us. And once you start tinkering with it, it's going to have all kinds of problems. And that's why, and just to get into a little bit of what Michael was talked about in the beginning, that's why some of the folks who watched the program yesterday, they got upset at me because the leader of the opposition said a few days ago, less than a week ago, that he was inclined to transfer all the powers of the Governor General to the President of the Republic. And I challenged him on that, and I said, you maybe want to reconsider that, because, and I listed all the powers of the Governor General to him, and I said, furthermore, technically speaking, the Governor General reports to the King. A president would not report to anybody the way they're looking at it, right? So I said to him, we may want to think about apportioning those powers across the spectrum.
So right again, freezing.
Yeah. Well, that's a key point he was speaking to, because this is really the crux of the whole matter, right? No matter what we do, no matter how even what we were talking about before in terms of all of these spins which they try to make and things which they keep from the people and all of this stuff, right? These are things which has to be addressed, you know? So I mean, you know, Ratty's right on point.
Well, so just to continue, some people got upset yesterday because when I asked him that question, that's one of the questions, but when I asked him that question, I said to him, he said to me, well, you know, the powers of he said I misunderstood some of the powers of the Governor General, because, you know, they have advice on consent, you have recommendation, you have instructions. And then I took him to the Constitution and I read him, I think it's section 34, it's here somewhere. I read him where it says, even with advice, consent, recommendation, all that stuff, at the end of the day, the Governor General is not obliged to follow anyone's instruction. And the provision after that says, and if he doesn't, you cannot take him to court. So I said to him, you know, leader of the party, opposition leader, here it is, it's right here. So, I mean, what are you going to tell? And then he had to say, well, he didn't have the Constitution in front of him, and so he has to go back and look at it. But it's right there, people. It's right there that the Governor General is the most powerful person in government in Jamaica. He has all executive powers vested in him by virtue of him representing the King. He's involved in the legislative process because no laws can be signed, no bill can become a law without him signing off on it, because it has to be passed by the House, then it has to be reviewed by the Attorney General, and then the Governor General has to give his assent. He's the last person. If he doesn't give his assent, no bill can become law. And the third part of it is the judiciary. He appoints the judges.
Here's a bigger point, though, as far as I'm concerned, right? And this is one of the things I wanted to really talk to you about, Ratty.
Yeah.
Right?
I think
any document, right? Any document has to begin with, first of all, its definition, and secondly, its purpose, right? If you look at that Constitution, right, it doesn't speak to definition, it doesn't speak to purpose, right? And how the hell can you have a document, right, that's supposed to be the governing document for a people trying to move away from colonialism, right, and replacing it with the very colonialists at the top of our document, right, as the overseer for our document, as the most powerful representation in our document. It's not our document.
No, it's not. It's not. And let me just read what I read to the opposition leader yesterday, because he was saying that, oh no, you don't understand the powers and all of this stuff. And I read it to him. It says, where the Governor General is directed to exercise any function after consultation with any person or authority, he shall not be obliged to exercise that function in accordance with the advice of that person or authority. He doesn't have to do anything. Then here's a section, the provision right below that. It says, where the Governor General is directed to exercise any function in accordance with the recommendation or advice of, or with the concurrence of, or after consultation with, or under representation of any person or authority, the question whether he has so exercised that function shall not be inquired into any court. It's plain language, it's simple. So I explained that to him. And because some people are of the opinion that, oh, you know, ceremonially he has to do this, and so he takes his cue from the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister will meet with him and blah 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 blah. And they forget the other section. There's another section here that says that the Governor General, the Prime Minister, must come to him and give him a report on what is going on in government in general and specific. I'm going to go and talk. I'm going to find it, because it's important that I read out that section so that people understand where the real power is in Jamaica.
So in a situation where the Prime Minister made up his mind to go and support the U.S. program in Haiti, I'm wondering if he told the Governor General first, and the Governor General got the clearance from the King in England. Because you think that under this constitution and the way things work, that's what is supposed to happen.
All right. Here it is. It's section 76, right? It says, and again, this is plain language, you know. I mean, a baby can understand this, despite the Queen's English, right? It says, the Prime Minister shall keep the Governor General fully informed concerning the general conduct of the government of Jamaica, and shall furnish the Governor General with such information as he, the Governor General, may request with respect to any particular matter relating to the government of Jamaica. Simple language. Simple. And people are run around and talk about, oh,
and there's nothing ceremonial about that.
There's nothing ceremonial about that, Patrick. Nothing ceremonial about that.
So the Governor General knew back in March what the intent of the Prime Minister was with regards to Haiti.
Can I get a question in?
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Can I get a question?
Yeah, man, we're hearing you. We're hearing you. We're hearing you. Go ahead.
I put up I put up a comment on the screen. Can you see that?
Yes.
That you should give the Governor General the benefit of the doubt.
No, I cannot. And here's why I cannot.
You know, the benefit of the doubt, trust that as a Jamaican, he will do what is good for Jamaica.
No, for Leroy Henry, right? Leroy a joke, man. Leroy, I joke. No, Leroy don't really mean that. Him just being sarcastic.
Yeah.
Leroy no serious. You know, Leroy, me know say I joke, Leroy. Because Leroy, here is something, Leroy. The state of emergency can only be declared in 3 instances: war, insurrection, and natural disaster. Cannot be used for police function, right? And remember now, the Governor General, he has the power to call the Prime Minister and says, okay, what's going on here? What's going on there? And then he has his advisors, right? Yet, despite all those powers, he signed off on all of those states of emergency. And what happened? The court said it's unconstitutional because the Governor General cannot do this. But guess what happened? The lawsuits were not filed with the Governor General as a respondent because of this provision that says no matter what he does or doesn't, you can't take him to court. So who did they sue? They sued the Minister of National Security, and I think they sued the police commissioner. They couldn't sue the Governor General. So you have to ask yourself the question, does this man have Jamaica's interests at heart? Look at how many people got detained unlawfully, unconstitutionally. And now the government is paying out huge sums to these folks. Where is that money coming from? Where? From the taxpayers. That's where the money is coming from. It's not coming out of the Governor General's pocket or the Prime Minister's pocket.
Well, he's not a taxpayer.
Oh yeah, you're right. People need to remember that the only individual mentioned in the tax code, that is exempt from paying taxes, the only Jamaican government official, because he's part of government, that is exempt from paying income tax is the Governor General. And ladies and
that's
gentlemen,
no joke, and that's not ceremonial.
That's no joke and not ceremonial. And ladies and gentlemen, we're paying him to the tune of 34 million Jamaican dollars a year. And we just this year, he got a budget of, with the supplemental, about 475 million Jamaican dollars to run his operations. I rest my case.
You know what?
Well rested.
You know what?
Can we sue the king then, Ratty?
No.
Can the king be sued?
Well, we have to find a court to do that, not in his court.
Yeah, but I listened to Rattigan and I listened to the many viewpoint out there. And in my mind, what it points to is a criticism of Norman Manley. You know, implicitly, yes, in terms of the Constitution, because he was one of the chief negotiators around the Constitution.
But
he went to England.
Mikey, here's the problem.
No.
You see that committee that they say was doing that, the Constitution in that time, that committee just take a constitution from the British and tinker with it and then give it back to them and say, yeah, that's what happened. There was nobody in Jamaica came up with a constitution. The British wrote this constitution and give it to them and said, this is the document. Take a look at it and give it back to us. That's how it operated. It wasn't. Yeah, Patrick.
Last. Perfect point. And further to that, let me add to that, right? Don't get it twisted, right? You're talking about negotiation with the colonialists. Can you negotiate with the colonialists? What is our history? You're gonna ignore our history? What is the nature of negotiation with the colonialists? The colonialists is in charge. At the time when they're doing all of this, they're in charge. They are determining everything that happens. It's no negotiation. That's what they tell you. But it's no negotiation. Right? Norman Manley was only there because he was premier at the time. Right? Which didn't mean much. Right? Under colonialism. Right? Now, when we talk about independence, what does independence mean? Does it mean independence or does it mean more dependence? Because what we are seeing and experiencing is more dependence. That's not independence.
Here's what it means. It means we are independence.
Yes. Exactly.
We're independence. We're not independent.
Two separate words. Yeah. So don't get it twisted. That's why I said I didn't want to press the MP last week, right? Because of course the MP is a liar too. So could I take him to task on it? But the fact of the matter is that we are the ones who need to really open our eyes. Not go by what they tell us.
As you raised that point, the MP made a statement last week in response to Rattigan, which I thought about and said, wait, what is he thinking about? I mean, when Ratty raised about abolishing the present constitution and starting over, the response of the minister was that, oh, I mean, you're talking about chaos. We're going to be without a government and blah blah blah, which it slipped. I think it slipped all of us what he was really saying. He was saying as if we are saying, okay,
Anarchy.
yeah, abolish before we even come up with a draft constitution. Forget about this constitution. Have some anarchy and then put a constitution in place. Just like how at the time of independence, that committee or whatever they said were negotiating with the British to have a new constitution. It's the same thing. It's no different. I mean, you're not saying don't have any law and order, don't have any rules, just forget about what the constitution say, make chaos reign for a while and come with something new. Nobody was saying that to the minister, but I think he misinterpreted what Ratty was saying and think that what Ratty was saying and what we were saying was that forget that we have a constitution. Right?
I don't think it's misinterpreting. I think what this is that these individuals, these politicians, they have to sell again. They have to sell something. And they want to remain at the head of the pack. You understand me? Bustamante did that. When the workers get ready to fight and march, and run in front of the pack and try to water down the working people issue. So Hilton and those elements, that force, who now provide leadership to the Jamaican people. They want to make sure that we are under their control. And they will say anything to maintain that. And that is what he's doing. Don't go down that way because it is chaos and anarchy if you take that road. You heard what I said? Some people want revolution. But remember, don't forget the French Revolution.
But here's the thing now.
So they're scared of the masses. And Bob Marley said, remember what Bob Marley said? The leader get up to speak, but people now listen. You understand me? So it's just, brethren, you know what? I listen to the item, but I think we should keep our eyes on the issue of the parliament, those 6 on that list. Because I tell you, there's worry. There's worry as to what next. If Holness and his wife are listed on that sheet of paper or in that report, you're going to see a push for election from within the JLP. You're going to see that because we will say this about the JLP, but the JLP have forces within itself that will rise up. Those who will say no election, I would anticipate to be the Siaga loyalists, and that would include Mackenzie and Babsy, but people like Mike Henry, those people are going to say, boy, you can't govern. And elements within the private sector say you can't govern with this hanging over your head. You can't do nothing. So I am saying we should keep our ears to the ground. But early election.
If I can say
and this week gonna be very crucial because she should have provided a list last Tuesday. She gave the opposition that undertaking. They asked, when they pressure her, she said, give me until Tuesday. She hasn't done so. She hasn't done so, So there's going to be a push for that list. And if that list, tell you, include both the wife and husband name, there are going to be problems. It's going to be rough for them going forward. Especially with Transparency International and the letter that Trevor Mann will distribute in this week about the corruption index. So it's going to be a rough time for the GLP beyond this week.
let me just say one thing I wanted to say to before we move on, right? And it is pertaining, this is the main point I want to make as it pertains to the Constitution. Here's what we miss in this whole constitutional issue. All of us, everybody, right, who had anything to do with living at the time when the Constitution was being put together, living today, seeing how the Constitution, features in our country, right, and all of that, right? One of the things we cannot forget is that Jamaica is not an isolated case. That's the first thing. Secondly, right, Jamaica is, at the time when we got independence, we were the first colony, not just in the English-speaking Caribbean, right, but in the British Empire, right? English-speaking British Empire I'm talking about, not otherwise speaking, but British-speaking empire. We were among the first to get independence who didn't have, nobody had any experience whatsoever. No matter whether them was lawyer or whatever, nobody had any experience in terms of dealing with them and the Constitution, right? What has happened since then is that others have taken from our experience and dealt with it differently, right? And but we have reference points that we can use. We have reference points when we look at the African continent, because a number of African countries were getting their independence around that time too, and was duped in the same way, right? Even though they were not under the British rule, right? But they were still under the rule of other colonialists. And now the colonialists has operated throughout history is that they all learn from each other. And you see them copy tactics, right? In terms of how they use their tactics and everything, right? We have to dig in more and do our study, right? We have to become historians. We have to become historians. We have to study history. We can't just be focused only on Jamaica. We're not an isolated case, right? There's a lot to be learned. And I can get into a lot of it when we really get into a constitution discussion, right? And I'll bring references too, right? So let's not forget that.
So where we go from here? All that is said today. Where do we go from here? We sit back and rely on the lawyers to go into a room and come up with a constitution, or do we continue the effort of mobilizing the Jamaican people to play a much bigger role in this process? Where do we go from here? The PMP is not.
We have to continue. We have to continue to blow the Constitutional Committee, of course. That's what we have to continue to do.
And we have a lot of reading and researching and studying to do.
Because the present course that the Constitutional Committee is on is not about, adapting the Constitution in any big way to our situation and to the needs of the people, right?
And how do we deal with those who said, like that man just said to Rattigan, give them a chance to work what they're working. Give them that space. How do you deal with that?
We can say that from 1962 they have had that chance to work what they're working, and nothing have come of that chance. How much more chance must we give them? From 1962 till now, we have given them that chance.
You can't give what you don't have.
They have tinkered with little bits and pieces of a constitutional reform that benefits them, but nothing that benefits the people, right? We have no control over them. They do whatever they want to do. The majority of the people still living in poverty, right? So how much more time must we give them? More time for people get poorer?
See, based on what you're saying, last, this is like a cruise ship out there called Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
These jokers have run it aground.
Definitely.
And they're asking us now, look, get off our backs for a second. Let us get this thing afloat again. Give us an extra 2 years, and we can get it floating, and and you can gradually get back on. But the bottom line is they have missed the boat. When the UK, the British left Jamaica, they left Jamaica with inadequate systems, not of governance, but of practical use. The sufficient roadways were never there. The roadways created was so that they could move sugarcane around to rail, right? And then the rail would then bring it to the port in Kingston or wherever else where the port. But the problem is the rail was never sufficient either. And since the Kendall crash, we really and truly have not had no rail systems. So here comes the Chinese and say, well, your infrastructure, we know it's insufficient. Give us a chance to improve it for you. It's going to cost a lot of money, but all you have to do is give us the necessary land to where we can create just-in-time inventories in the Western Hemisphere. And this is what they've done. They're building North-South Highway. They're building all the southern highways, finishing off from east, coming around into Harborview, and they're building from Mandeville going all the way around to Negril. So not doing all of this infrastructure improvement, they're giving them the land on either side of the North-South Highway, 1,200 acres. They give them another 600 acres in Clarendon on the waterfront, so that they can bring in have their harbors to bring in the ships, right? The land on either side of the North-South Highway, they're going to be able to put storage units there so that they can have their just-in-time inventory there. And at the former U.S. Air Base, Vernon Field, they're going to have an air complex there where they can fly things in and out. So they have it set, right? Where Jamaica is still suffering is the simple roads that the people need to move around in their own communities. And they have not had any extensive work done on those. They have a lot of pothole patching, right? I understand now they go over roads inside, like Barbican Road, that take them from their homes in Cherry Gardens all the way up to Matilda's Corner and then down Hope Road and Old Hope Road. So you have those improvements that are happening, but it's not happening fast enough. And every time the Chinese does something, we have to give away something in addition. That's the Chinese. Now with the US, we're playing both ends against the middle. We're trying to get the best from the Chinese and the best from the US. So now here comes the US saying, okay, you can spend up to 100 million, right? Jamaica latch onto it. The Kenyans latch onto it. But are they truly going to use that money to improve Haiti? Or is Jamaica and Kenya, Barbados, and Antigua Barbuda looking for money to improve their own stead and not actually improve Haiti as promised? Right? No. It's a serious situation because CARICOM is supposed to come up with a plan to improve Haiti. And I don't hear CARICOM's voice anywhere. I hear the UN, and I hear the US, I hear Canada to some extent, then you hear Kenya and Jamaica. I don't hear anybody else. The Haitians, like, they don't have a voice.
But here's
So
the thing.
how long are we going to be stuck over there on the U.S. plan? And how many people may lose their lives on the U.S. plan? Right? This is what the U.S. has been avoiding. To over-deploy themselves. To overcommit themselves. But is Jamaica going to be overcommitted? To the point where the government say, oh, well, we need 2 more years to settle this. Yeah, that's what we have to be cautious about.
Well, here's
see,
another thing,
what
Herb.
this remind me of, you see what you're talking about, what it remind me of is this. In 1983, after winning a massive landslide in the 1980 election, by 1983, Siaga government was a minority government, and he realized it. So immediately he had a snap election. You understand? I think Haiti might be Oldness Grenada. Haiti might just become Oldness, because a lot of people are talking about these soldiers going to Haiti to fight, you know. And if the casualty count start to climb with regards to Jamaica in Haiti, then that's going to be another problem for the GLP government.
Well, when we sent soldiers to Grenada, it was after the whole thing, you know. We only sent soldiers there to oversee the prisons.
They're mopping up.
When everything was over. Yeah.
Right, but I'm saying that
But
if the casualty count in Haiti for Jamaican soldiers start to climb, or if after the first Jamaican really gets shoot down in Haiti, that then become a problem for Oldness. It's bound to. The Jamaican people are going to start that regular. I don't know why you're saying, what are we doing in Haiti? People are going to start asking those questions.
I don't think they're gonna wait that long.
A problem.
I don't think they're gonna wait that long. The moment the troops actually start taking off to go there,
that's
right?
a possibility.
If they said nothing before, the moment troops start leaving, and it is known that troops actually leave, people will be up in arms about it. I'm telling you, nobody's gonna just sit back and wait on anything.
That's not a serious possibility.
Not at this stage. But what I wanted to say to what you said, Herb, right, in terms of some of these developments, and this again is where it's important that we do our research and we really understand things in a deeper way, is that when it comes to the Kingston waterfront, for example, right, that one I can speak on because that one I know about. I work through it, right? I live it, right? The whole development of the Kingston waterfront is not an overnight affair, right? That is something that has been going on from as far back as the 60s, right? In the 70s, what happened was that you had the Kingston Wharves and the Western Terminals. Those were the two. The rest of it was all the way you see now with all of them gantry cranes and all of that. All of that was not even land. That was swampland, right? Nothing was happening then. Then came the development to build a transshipment port, right? The Chinese were nowhere around. They were never a part of none of that, right? When the transshipment port was built and they started to look at the strategic development of the port and its potential, right? Because what a lot of people don't know is, a lot of Jamaicans don't know, is that Kingston Harbor is noted as the 3rd safest harbor in the entire world, right? And it is positioned strategically, right, in terms of its connection to the Panama waterfront and all of that. So for international shipping, it's ideal. It's a big bonus. It's like the gold of harbor, right? And shipping, right? That's what Kingston Harbor means. That's why that port development is so important. Where you see the development is today, it was not even that far, you know, into the plans, right? And I think, from my understanding, it was the Dutch who was the main ones who were behind all of that. Because as some of you may know, the Dutch is the number one, is one of the number one shipping magnates across the world, right? So this is where it all come from. The Chinese came lately, right? Chinese can flex the power now because of their position, but
well, I
they
want to
came
ask you a
lately.
question. I want to ask you and Ratigan a question. In listening to the PMP, you notice they talk no more about logistics hub. Logistics hub was a big thing. It was like the baby, Tony Hilton baby.
He still talk about it.
From Portia Simpson administration up to now. And they even in the conference, nothing is said about the logistics hub.
Yeah, well, they're probably keeping that piece under the hat, but he still talk about it.
He
can
does
still talk about it. Yes.
Yeah,
because it's a big deal for him. It's a big deal for him because it is a big part of it. The development is gonna be in his constituency. So him talk about it. Yeah, him still talk about it. That's a big deal. But they're probably trying to keep that under the hat until they, because that is probably gonna be one of their big bonuses.
That's what the land is about. The land on either side of the North-South Highway is to put up those warehouses, right? And then the 600 acres waterfront in Clarendon, that is where the ship's going to come in. And then Vernon Field in Maypen, Clarendon, is where the air cargoes will come in, right? So everything is pretty much in place. And if the Chinese find it necessary, they procure more land and use the train system, which they want to expand. And that train system would be primarily to move their logistics back and forth.
And a key piece of the Chinese involvement is, right, again, what a lot of people fail to understand is Chinese power in the world today when it comes to trading. Notice, the Chinese are not involved in any war with anybody, right?
No.
But they're producing like hell. They're producing like hell. They are the biggest trading partner with the US. They're the biggest trading partner with Europe, right? And the trade balance between them and the US is in their favor. Right? Similarly, the trade balance between them and the Europeans is in their favor. China is the fastest developing country across the world. They have more goods, right, to move more than anything else, which means what? Would eat more ships, which means what? They'll be bringing would eat more business through this part of the world, because Chinese is spreading them tentacles all across the entire globe, non-stop.
It's an $18 trillion economy that they have. They've already bought over, I think it's an 8,000 acre property, an airport right behind a U.S. Air Force base in Texas. They're going to improve the Inter-American Highway from Nicaragua all the way up into Texas. And they still have a plan that would create another pathway from the Pacific to the Atlantic by coming through Nicaragua. That's an $80 billion project that they've put on hold so far, because they were the ones that improved the Panama Canal, and they have that lease on the Panama Canal. And the potential, like I say, Jamaica is directly across nautically from Nicaragua. So whatever they bring from Pacific through that to Atlantic into the Caribbean Sea will be to Jamaica and store it in Jamaica. And Jamaica then will be a transshipment point to move everything.
It's been so already.
Yeah. Move stuff into the US.
Yes.
Move it into Canada. Yeah.
Two other key points to that, right? One is the Kingston Harbor, again, has been dredged to the point where Kingston Harbor can handle the size ships right, that can land in any port across the world.
The super tankers.
The super ships can come into Kingston Harbor. Many of these ships can't go anywhere else in the Caribbean region, right? But they can come into Kingston Harbor, right? That's one. Two, when you talk about transshipment herb, right? Like I said, it is the key point, the main logistics point prior to all of this was Panama, because of the Panama Canal, because it has to both sides, the Atlantic and the Pacific, right? Now you have Kingston adding into the mix, right? The transshipment been going on for quite some time, but now it's gonna boom. Now we're talking about a boom. That's one. The other thing, don't forget, and Oldness them mention it, and I doubt very much that this is a feather under their cap. I feel this was coming from a previous administration, but they claim it. They are building, the Dutch is building and training, right, for ship repair, right, ship rebuilding and all of them things in Kingston. Nowhere in this region, anything like that is taking place. So there's a whole lot of things to come in terms of shipping and shipping development.
Well, gentlemen, we have spent a long time on this topic, you know, and Mr. Radigan, I have a question for you, sir.
Ask me any questions, sir.
Yesterday, you asked Mr. Golden
about
a property. You raised a question about a property. I don't know what to ask because I see in today's paper there is an article that Mr. Golden made something like $58 million from real estate.
56.
And therefore one would assume that this is a savvy businessman. Savvy businessman with a company, just like the Prime Minister. Probably the difference is that the directors are him and his wife, while in Oldness' case, the directors are his kids. What is your take on all of this thing? Because it seems like you raised it yesterday, and in today's Sunday Gleaner, there's something. Golden makes it $58 million.
Somebody tell me that me in my mother belly, one more day would be a profit. But listen,
look like it was.
I don't know because Patrick, you see, I tell you this. When I heard him ask question, I said that effer, he must have something up his sleeve. That's why I come on and laugh. And then today I wake up and I see a new article. I said, damn, Ratigan is 10 steps ahead of us.
No, here's what happened. Here's what happened. I asked the...
Herb, you know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, Herb was on the program.
Yeah. Last, you know what we're talking about?
No, I didn't see the program. I haven't seen it yet.
Right, let's
I'll be looking at it later.
All right.
Bring us up to date.
All right. I had an interview with the opposition leader yesterday. I had 12 areas that I wanted to ask questions. I asked him 9 questions. 9. I had 12 areas, but more than 12 questions. And I asked him 9 questions. He answered 8 of them. Now, today, people are very upset. They're very upset about 2 particular questions, but one more so than anything else. Now, I asked him about leadership. I started out with leadership. I asked him about safety and security. I asked him about constitutional reform. I asked him about beach access. I asked him about the Integrity Commission. I asked him about health. I asked him about young people. I asked him about the assessment of the government, and I asked him about preparations for the elections, right? And he answered all of the questions. So I don't know why people are upset, because he answered the question. It's not like he didn't answer the questions. Every single question he didn't answer the very last question, because he said he had an important thing he had to do with his wife, and so he had to leave. And that's fine, right? I understand that, because he actually went over the time period. He was supposed to leave at our time 4:45, and he actually went up 15 minutes beyond. So I understood that when he said, "Look, I have to go now." Although the last question was it's a very pertinent question, because here's the last question. I said to him, "You've given many arguments, but I'd like you to give the voters your best argument as to why they should give you and your party the reins of power at the next local and general elections." Now, that's a question that's open-ended question. That's a question where you can make a political speech. You can talk about it for days. That question he didn't answer because he had to leave, right? And I take him at his word. There's no suspicion in my mind about why he had to leave. So I started out by asking him about leadership, what kind of leader he is. Did he become a leader? To define political leadership, did he become leader of the PNP was it an aspiration or was it destiny? Is he a born leader? Does he consider himself a born leader or a trained leader? And then I said to him, regarding the hike for parliamentarians, the salary, you didn't speak as a leader, you spoke as an individual. You said, "I will take, my salary and I will donate 80% of it," which is fine. But I said, Eddie Seager or Michael Manley, they would have had a caucus and they would have come out and said, "Listen, as a party, we're not taking it. Or as a party, we're taking it. Or as a party, we're taking 80% and we're taking 20% and we're giving 80% away." But in his case, the party was all over the place. He came out and said, I'll take the full amount and I'll give 80% to charity," which is very noble, right? Because it's helping people. But then members of his party, some of them said, "No, some of them didn't give. Some of them didn't give the 80%, right? Some of them, I suspect, gave nothing. And so he said, "Well, people have different reasons for doing, economic and otherwise, and so on and so forth." So that was that. So he answered the question, right? Whether to your satisfaction or not, he answered it.
But but if I can just mention something, Ratty, he said something further to that point when you question him further on it, is that he said that it wasn't a matter that they were in a position to either accept it or reject it, right? So it was a situation of determining what do they do with it, right? Once they get it, because they just would get that money in the bank through the bank, and that would be it.
Right. The point I was trying to drive at him was that there was no unity. Right. And so when you speak as a leader of a party, there should be unity. Everybody must line up behind you. So what you do, you have a caucus and say, "Gentlemen and gentlewomen, this is what's going on. We have to speak with one voice, right? We can't go and I'm saying, well, as an individual, this is what I'm doing. This guy over here, it's up to him, whatever." No, because this was a very serious matter. Because this was a matter where, if you remember, they gave the civil servants a certain amount, and then they said they didn't have any money, right? At least that's what they even said to the DPP lawyer. The Department of Prosecution lawyers, and they gave them 20%, and then they hiked it up for everybody after, above that, high level people. So that was that. He answered it. So whether you like it or not, that's fine. He answered. I asked him about safety and security, and because he made a speech at the convention saying that the PNP will properly focus on equipping the police and the justice system with legislation, tools, technology, and human resources. And I said to him, "Hey, right now this government will say that we've done that, but we know that that's not true." I said to him, because look at everything that's going on. And so he answered that question, no issues. I asked him about constitutional reform, and we had a little issue there, because he was saying that I misunderstood or misinterpreted the powers of the Governor General. And then I had to read to him what I read to you guys this evening. And then he said, "Well, I don't have the Constitution in front of me, and so I will, I'll take a look at it." So the answer, beach access. I asked him, "Hey, you mentioned that you're going to use the beach access law of 1956. You're going to use that to talk to the private beach owners and see if you can negotiate an easement." And so the question was, well, when you go talk to people like Sandals and the other people, and they say no, are you prepared to invoke the other aspect of that law, which says that the government can force them to sell that piece of land for the pathway, for the pathway? And if they don't, that same law says the police commissioner is responsible for using all necessary force to make sure that that happens. So I said, if they don't agree with you when you go and you negotiate with them, are you willing to take the step to do this? He answered. He said yes. I asked him about health, and we talked about the horror stories. And I said to him, look, how do you plan to address the situation? And I hope you don't start with putting a leader like the one we have there, who is a marketing person, who's not a medical doctor, who's not familiar with all of these things. And we know this because he's been interviewed several times. And I personally, I've been on one interview with him, and I've listened to him doing interviews on the radio. So we know that he's not the most qualified person. And he said, no, our spokesperson on health is a medical doctor, and he's aware of all the administrative things. And so we have a highly qualified person. And by the way, he's not the only qualified person we have. We have other doctors, blah, blah, blah. Then I asked him about, and I'm not going in the order I asked him, because I'm saving the piece that Nita wants me to talk about. I'm saving that for last. So then I asked him about young people. What is your plan to make the mandates of Vision 2030, Jamaica as a place to live, work, raise a family, and conduct business, a reality for our young people? And I followed up that by saying, young people in Jamaica, they've spoken to me and they said, look, we don't see a future. We can't even buy a home, because part of it is the influx of foreign capital purchasing the homes. They've priced us out of the market. He answered that, and he gave the NHT response. He gave the history of it and where we are and what his plans are for the future. He answered that, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that somebody called me from Jamaica, a young person called me from Jamaica today and said that there are some things that he didn't address. For example, they said on the NHT, it's extremely difficult for young people to get a house because it's based on a point system. How long you've been contributing to NHT. So he said, look, the people who are getting the homes now, they're in the 50s, and 60s. You don't see a 25-year-old or 27-year-old person getting a house. So he said you should have asked him, what about allocating a certain percentage of the new homes being built for young people? So, and I said to him, look, I didn't ask him that because I didn't know, and I wasn't going to ask him follow-up any questions anyway. I asked him about the assessment of the government. I said, despite its numerous failings, admittedly, the government has done some things right. If you had to compliment the government for a job well done, what job would that be for? And he said, yes, they have continued with the fiscal policies started by our party, right? And we said, fine. And then the last question was the preparation for the elections, and he didn't answer that. Now, here's a question that Nita wants me to discuss. And here's a question why people are very upset. And I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but opposition leader Mark Golding was the chief architect of the Integrity Commission Act. He was the one behind it. And he admitted that yesterday. Said, yes, I might think that, I mean, write it, right? It was passed under this government in 2017, and the institution became effective in 2018. So the first question I asked him was, what was your involvement with the creation of the act? He said, yeah, my thing that. Then I asked him about section 53, subsection 3, which is the gag order that everybody was talking about and still talking about, saying, how can you gag them from talking, from just saying that this person, that person is on investigation? Because there are a lot of merits. There are a lot of merits to having somebody said, well, this person is on investigation. People could bring information to you, but if they don't know you're investigating somebody, then that's it. By the time they find out, it's too late. You've tabled the thing, and so you have to move on, right? So I asked him about that, and he said, look, yeah, I understand the argument against it. However, he said, I still stand by it, but I'm prepared to review it and to be convinced otherwise. And I said to him, I stand ready to convince you otherwise. Then we went into the DPP thing about the amendment for her to be 65 and so on and so on. So while we're talking about this integrity commission and integrity and fairness and all that stuff, I said to him, and this is the part I need to want to talk about. I said to him, Mark, I have a report here, right? I just get this report. And this report, it says, and I have it right here. Oh, wait, I have it right here. It says, and I said it to him. I said to him, one of the first things that came to mind. He said that he had established a company in the British Virgin Islands, and that company purchased a home in Jamaica, and he was the occupant of that home, and that they were going back and forth with based on what I'm reading here, and I still haven't read the whole thing, back and forth about whether or not it should have been filed. He purchased this before he became a government employee, but he had it during his tenure as a government employee, and I think he transferred it to his children, I think 2 years ago or something like that. So the argument was, shouldn't he have filed this on his statutory declaration? No, based on what I'm seeing here, they went back and forth, and there were journalists who were asking him questions, journalists asking the Integrity Commission, and they're going back and forth. So I said to him, listen, I'm reading this thing, and it's kind of confusing to me. I really don't know, and I haven't read the full report. So, do you care to just explain this? What's going on here with this? He gave an answer. He answered. He said, my wife and I, we purchased this, blah, 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 and it was this and this and that, and I gave it to my kids, blah, blah, blah. And I said to him, well, I haven't read the full report, so, maybe some other time when I've read the full report, maybe we can talk about it. And I moved to the next question. That was the shortest answer he gave me, and that was probably the shortest question I asked him. All of a sudden, people start to, him go bring up that fund, him go ask the man this and this and I said, wait a minute, I didn't accuse him of anything. I just said, and some of this information is in the public domain. I said, I never accused him of anything. I just said to him, I just got this, I'm going through it, and I'm kind of confused as to what's going on. Do you care to? He could have said, no, I don't want to talk about that right now, and I would have been perfectly fine with it. He offered an explanation. People forgot that he answered the question. He answered it, and he moved on, and I moved on. But now, today, a whole bunch of people now start saying, me, I go cost them the election because me go bring up this. And by the way, when I started it out, I said to him, look, the Prime Minister established a company in St. Lucia with his children on the board, and it's questionable, and probably it shouldn't have happened. So I make sure I tell him, say, look, it's not like I'm going after you. I'm saying there was something out there, the Prime Minister, similar. But with your case, I'm not quite sure what's going on because I don't have the full story. So do you care to talk about it? Just explain. People here up on fire right now. The whole day, I spent about 6 hours today on phone calls with people. I said, why the people, I'm upset at you. And I'm going to say, hold on a second there. Every single question I asked this man, he answered. Every single question he answered. This question, he answered this question as well. So I don't understand what the problem is. And not only that, the idea of even this coming out, I said it should serve him well, because if this is something that the JLP is planning to bring out a month before the election, at least now he has a chance to come out now and say, hey, this is much ado about nothing, because I don't think he's ever spoken publicly about it. So he can come out now and say, here's a full story. Put it to bed, right? Rather than wait a month before election and then somebody bring it up, right? And to be honest with you, his statutory declaration was certified. It was certified, albeit there were some issues going on whether or not he should have mentioned it. And I read them apart where two people said that it should have been declared. But be that as it may, they accepted it. So I don't see an issue. But some people just see an issue, and it's almost like you must ask. And that's why I prefer staying right where I am in this position, where I can call balls and strikes. I can call issues as I see them, where I'm not beholden to anyone. And I've said to people before, I don't care about politics and party. I care about people and the policies. And the production. As long as you take care of the people, I'm fine. People, I tell them, vote for whoever you want to vote for. I don't care. But just make sure that whoever you're voting for, that they're doing the right thing by you.
But to that question, Ratty, if I can just speak a little about that, because I have a particular understanding. I have a particular understanding about that whole scenario, right? And are you gonna see more and more, things like that? That is not about politics. You know what that is? That is about taxes. That's what that is. Because a lot of business practices you'll see in Jamaica, for example, right? You might see it, like I say, you're likely to see it more and more. But one of the things a lot of people don't understand is that the way you do things privately and the way you do things as a company is completely different when it comes to taxes, right? Even a lot of people who are in business don't know it. And that's what I'm going to get into now. When you look at, for example, a Jamaican, let me use the US scenario, because a lot of it is based on business practices in the US, right? You'll notice that in the US, well, you probably won't notice it, but if you get close enough to them or close enough to see how they operate, you'll pick it up, right? When you go into the families of business people, nothing is in their name, right? Nothing is in their name. Their name is completely hidden.
Only Donald Trump.
Right? Not even Donald. Well, Donald Trump, yes, kinda, because him use it as it's not in his name, but him use the brand. Him say Trump brand, and that is his name. So the moment anybody say Trump anywhere, them going to associate it with him, right? But what happens is that, and he uses it a lot, because evening sessions that I've been to, right, training sessions and all of that, is used as a reference point with some of these things. When they set up business, it's not done in their name, right? Nothing and everything, the house they live in, the car they drive, the grocery, everything, right? Everything is basically a write-off, because everything is done through the business, right? That's the first thing. And they operate on business credit. Now, on business credit, totally different terms from private credit, right? For example, if you buy a house privately with a private mortgage, right? You pay an astronomical amount for that house, right? You originally purchased a $10,000 house, but by the time you finish paying for it, right, over the mortgage period, right, you pay more than 10 times the cost of the house, right? When you buy a house under business credit, it's a completely different ball game, right? You pay for that house in no time, simple interest, and it's done, right? All the qualifications for the mortgage, everything, right, is on different terms from the personal thing. When it comes to, if anything happens to you and you need to transfer to your kids and all of that, right? There's transfer tax and all of that. So that's one of the reasons why the moment the kids start going to school, right? Their name is in the business. Their very name is in the business, right? So there's if they should die, whatever should happen to them, right? There's no taxes to be paid. So my thing is that if he had a company overseas and used the company to buy a house in Jamaica, that was probably his easy way of moving funds to Jamaica without taxes, right? Without astronomical taxes, right? Whether from where he's coming from or where he's going to, right? Where he's buying the house. Plus, in terms of qualifying for the house, he can qualify for a much better house and all of that thing. It's all done primarily, right, for taxes.
That's a story,
right? So it's not really a political ploy, and again, all of these things are quite legitimate.
So on that basis, then he has nothing to worry about there.
No.
What about the others? Last Herb?
No, I have nothing to say on this issue at this time.
Herb? Patrick is saying it's just for taxes, and therefore he should not worry about anything. He's in the clear.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, right, I didn't ask him anything about taxes. I just asked him about saying that, I just ask him to say, hey, is there anything you want to talk about? Because I don't understand what's the big deal about you filing and you're not filing. I don't understand what's going on, because it seems like there's a lot of confusion when I read the report. And so he answered, but I don't understand why people, you see, the thing is,
yeah, because basically what he said is that he transferred ownership of the company to his
children.
Right. Which is
it's fine.
I mean, yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Right. So I don't understand why people get upset over it, because here's the thing. The thing is, are we now at the point where we are saying that we cannot question anything done by certain politicians or any politician? I mean, is that where we are right now, that we can? Because on my program, I beat the government morning, noon, and night, 7 days a week. I beat every chance I get. I beat the government, because they're in charge of the purse strings. They're making decisions, and so they're the ones that you have to hold accountable, right? But you also have to hold the opposition accountable too, because they're there for a purpose. They're not there just to look good and sit down in a parliament and collect the big salary. They're there to hold the government accountable as well, which leads me to another point, which is this: the people like us, people who make references and talk about what's going on in Jamaica. We are part of the opposition as well. When we criticize the government and we do this, we become part of it, and more so because in some instances, in a lot of instances, we end up educating, or I shouldn't use that word educate, but we end up exposing a lot of I don't want to say illegality, but a lot of questionable behavior by the government. A lot of questionable behavior by the government. So by that very act, we become, and because we do it on a consistent basis, we become part of the opposition. And so the question that I ask myself is, well, wait a minute. Why is it that a Ratigan in America have to go do the research and ask questions and do this and digging and all that to find out that fertilizer went to Jamaica and fertilizer fertilizer that should have gone to farmers for free to help them with their produce and whatever they're planting or whatever. What about where's the spokesperson on agriculture on that? Where's the spokesperson on Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade issues? Because believe me, the thing that I'm doing with Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith is not the only thing that we can hold her responsible for. You can look at the foreign policy of Jamaica and see how it's changed radically from where it was. Who is holding her accountable and say no, and enlightening the Jamaican people and say this is what is going on with our foreign policy and this affects us? Who's doing that? Local government. When you look at across the government and you try and match them up with the opposition spokesperson, how many opposition spokespeople do you see coming out and talking about the issues as much as we talk about the issues? So we are part of the opposition, right? And part of being opposition is introspection, is what are we doing? Why are we here? Why are we doing this? And so we shouldn't erect fences and say, well, then we're the opposition. We don't ask about the opposition. We only ask about the government.
Here's the thing, Ratty. You see, when you look at corruption in Jamaica and the reason for its continuation, you'll see that there's no real big push to change the system to make it very difficult for anybody act in a corrupt way. The main thing about corruption in Jamaica and the political circles is that it has become a weapon. When you can accuse a man, when you can point a finger, you can throw a stone at a man and say him corrupt. That's all that the political circles want to do. So when you're on this side and you're criticizing the government, you're using corruption as a weapon against the government. But when people believe, say, okay, you're on this side, and if you question a man about corruption, you fling the stone in the wrong direction. Right. You know, you you fire your weapon in the wrong direction. That's how people look at it.
But
And
lads,
that's how some people probably see that question yesterday. So what will on?
yes,
So
but
what
here's the
on?
thing, lads.
Are we a friendly fire thing right here?
No, but here's the thing, lads. Here's the thing. They're now accusing me of being a JLP supporter, right?
That's
And I said to them,
expected.
yeah, but here's what I said to them. Here's what God not sleeping, brother. God not sleep. God will guide me. Here's what I said to them. Since I'm a JLP supporter, I need you to come to court on the 27th of October and look and see who I've filed the action against and tell
Are
me.
you hold up. Radigan.
Yeah,
Radigan. Are you a JLP supporter?
I'm a
That's what
people
they accuse you
supporter.
of?
I support the people. I support the people, not the People's National Party, the people of
Okay.
Jamaica.
Hold on, I'm accused you for being a GLP for asking that question.
Yeah,
That's
what
how
I'm
much they
asking.
don't understand.
That's how much corruption is weaponized in the country.
No.
So don't be surprised.
No, but
Corruption
that's
is a
how much-
weapon
that's how much they don't understand.
you fire at the next side, you know. That's how GLP fired the thing and when PNP in a power and PNP fired the thing at GL. But when you're looking at yourself and looking, okay, this is my party. Let us look inside and see where if there's any corruption and try weed it out. No, people don't want you to do that. That's the history. That's the history of the country.
but here's the thing, right?
Here's the thing with that question, Ratty. Right? If I was to look at it objectively, I would say that he's the one who probably gave you the question to ask him. So he could
Okay, so you can explain.
it. Yeah.
Okay. That's why we're looking at it, right? Yeah. But here's the thing now. The thing now is that PNP send me a JLP, JLP send me a PNP, and UIC say come to us, Papa.
We're not Ratty. We're not worried about that because we know that's how the system set. Weaponized corruption, that's why it's not being dealt with in the country. So it needs people like us. It needs people like us who are not afraid to face the weapons, to bring out the truth, right? To stop. Because there has to be a point where the weaponization of the thing stop and people deal with the truth about it.
But here's the thing, lads. Like I said, I asked him 9 questions, you know. And the man answered 8. I had like 24 questions, and I asked him 9, and he answered all of them. So if I don't understand where the big brouhaha with the fuss boat and where the branding boat, because all of a sudden now they're the biggest labor right.
That's true.
And people said to me, said, hey, if we lose the election, you know, are you?
Simple.
Well, Ratty, let me introduce Miss Zara Burton, who wrote that article, the one you spoke to him about. And Zara is going to say in her own words what it is she was questioning about that tax information. Zara, without further ado, I'd like you to address this court of public opinion that we're fighting with.
Zara, take your filter off of the
Before she do that, our face, we're not seeing her face clearly.
Yeah, camera.
Oh, is it my camera?
Is there a filter on?
Yes, their camera.
I'm so sorry. I don't think I have a filter on. Hang on, let me see. Hang on.
All right.
Yeah.
That's all?
No.
Yeah, there you go.
No,
that's good.
Before Miss
I know you're trying to camouflage, Zara, but that's all right.
Before you say a word, Zara, let me just say that because of your report, right, I'm now being branded as the biggest labor right. And I'm being accused right now that people have said that if them lose the election, is my fault. But I'd like to push the blame on you because I didn't do any of this. I didn't do any of this right thing. I just got the report and I just read it and I just thought it was interesting. And I don't know if you watched the programs, but all I asked him was I just said to him, hey, the Prime Minister was accused of doing this, and that. And I see where this happened with you. And I said to him, I see where there's some confusion because I haven't really read the full thing. And so I'm just kind of confused. Do you want to shed some light on it? That's what I asked. and he answered the question. And then today I was on the phone for about 7 hours or whatever, answering questions. People say the people very upset, very, very upset at me for asking that question. So I yield.
But why are they upset? That's the part that you have to ask the question. Why are they upset?
Because he's revealed a secret about the opposition leader that nobody was aware of, and they think that
not secret.
it was a slap against him. In that, here you are hiding something just like the prime minister was hiding. Zara brought the prime minister's secret out. Now she's bringing the leader of the opposition secret out, and you have to come and talk about it. You meaning Mr. Rattigan had to speak on it. So, is it
Oh, so
a
you must going
secret?
to ask questions
Uh,
about the prime minister, not the opposition leader. He's off the limits.
okay.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the public's view. All right, public. So I might be the one to blame as well, because I am the one that did the original story on Mr. Golding. And to be honest with you, audience.
Zara, can you just give
Uh-huh.
us a little bit about your background so if the listeners can know who you are?
All right. I'm a journalist. I'm with 18 Degrees North. I'm the founder of 18 Degrees North newsletter. And if you go to my website, which is globalreporterscaribbean.com, you will
Yes.
see the newsletter there. You can sign up. You can either sign up for the free version or the paid version. Usually with the free version, you get the gist of the articles, but with the paid version, you get the more in-depth, juicy stuff. And I do investigative journalism and have been doing this for years. The newsletter stemmed from 2013 when I actually was doing a show on TVJ of the same name, 18 Degrees North. And it was at that time in 2016 that I did the expose on Mr. Hunis's house, his big house up in Beverly Hills in Jamaica. And it was at that time, we got 18 Degrees North got sued by the prime minister and his friend Robert Garvin and that kind of thing. So the thing is, I do have somewhat of a record of looking into these things regarding, especially in that case, it was an offshore company at the time that had owned his property up in Beverly Hills. So this particular property now, we come to find out, also is owned by an offshore company in the BVI this time. Mr. Hunis's own was St. Lucian. So that's the background.
Okay, well, goes right into it, bro. Sign me up and just proceed. Tell us what's going on.
So the story that we released on Tuesday last week had social media alit because of the fact that in a lot of cases, there is this impression that Mr. Golding is an honest guy, an honest politician guy, somebody that is for the people, somebody that, has the country's best interest at heart. And some people see Mr. Golding, particularly PNP people, as having an uncertified statutory declaration form from the Integrity Commission. So that must mean something. Either he's hiding something, maybe he's dishonest, maybe. This story sought to poke away at the whole issue of whether Mr. Golding is also as transparent as he makes himself out to be. And I must tell you that this investigation started last year, the genesis of it. And I'm encouraging people to sign up for my newsletter because right now we're still researching. I'm still researching. And this is going to be coming out about offshore companies in general, linked to politicians. So I'm going to be doing a series, Politicians and Their Offshore Companies. And it was while questioning, it's a very complicated, intricate thing. And it was while researching on Mr. Golding and his offshore companies that I started asking him a series of questions in August about his offshore companies. And it was at that time that he told me point blank that the 2021 statutory declaration form that he, you know, the summary that was released by the Integrity Commission in October of last year doesn't include the house that he is actually living in up at Farringdon Drive in St. Andrew. And I was like, huh? So that struck me as really strange. And I said, that's a story right there. And then I see Marissa Dalrymple, this now in September, who is being like just pummeled by every single civil society advocate about the fact that she's being referred for prosecution for not declaring her car worth $6 million. And I'm thinking to myself, look at the star person involved here. Mr. Golding pushing for her resignation because she was fingered for prosecution for not declaring her car, when I know that there is a possibility he did not declare that house he lives in, because he says it's not his house. It's owned by an entity registered in the BVI. And so I said, this is interesting because everybody's coming down on Marissa Dalrymple. And I think Mr. Golding himself has some questions to answer. And so I asked him more questions about, you know, the house, and leading even after that, before that, I kept asking him some questions. And so what he is essentially saying is, at least to me, what my deduction is that the statutory declaration form either doesn't or may not require for assets to be declared to the Integrity Commission if these assets are owned by a company. And I found that very strange because he told me that he transferred shares of Tajibi, which is the offshore entity in the BVI that owns the house at Farringdon. He transferred those shares only in 2021. No, he's had a statutory declarative, what do you call it, a declaring requirement since 2007. That entity has been around since 2001. So from 2007, he and his wife owned 100% of those shares of that entity that owned that house. And between 2007 and 2021, you're almost getting the impression that it's never been declared to the Integrity Commission, and he won't answer that question definitively. He will not answer whether it was declared or not. He'll say that it was never a part of his real estate declarations, but he won't say whether his assets overall, like in a different asset category, let's say, if the house was declared under that umbrella. And so therefore, you ask yourself the question, did he declare the house? And if he didn't declare the house under another asset category, who is he so different then from Marissa Dalrymple? And that's the crux of it all, isn't it? So Marissa Dalrymple.
No, I would disagree with you.
No, it's not that I'm saying anything. I'm asking the question. Is he different from Marissa Dalrymple? And that's a question that some people, like you're going to know, say you side on the side of it is different. Another person, however, might say that it is not different. Maybe Mr. Golding is just more sophisticated. You as the public, who this form is supposed to serve, have to decide what you think is the right thing that this form should be capturing, if it's not already requiring that these assets be captured. Because what I will tell you is I did speak to a couple lawyers prior to publishing, and they said to me, based on what they see on the form, it does require assets of companies that the declarant would control to be declared to the Integrity Commission on the statutory declaration form, right? But I'm getting the sense from Mr. Golding, based on his answers, that he believes, even as an attorney, He believes differently. And the question then becomes, and I asked him this question, despite all the legal requirements, in the interest of the public, because you are the opposition leader, you may be the prime minister one day. The question is, did you declare, and do you not believe that you should declare everything regardless of what the reform is requiring? And he didn't answer that question, which is also telling.
Can I ask a question here?
Yeah.
Who is required to declare asset in Jamaica? Is it anyone or those who are involved in politics or a civil servant? Who is required? Who are required to declare?
Persons that have income over, I think, it's either 3 or 3.5 million. I can't remember right now. Jamaican dollars, 3.5 million, something like that. They earn that per year. They're required to declare.
Okay, because I asked that question because I think one of the arguments is that he was not involved in politics. He was not involved in politics during that time, and therefore he was not required to declare. Is this a fact, Radigan?
Radigan's freeze.
It's frozen.
I don't get a sense that it's only assets before or after politics that should be declared. I get a sense that it's all assets that should be declared. And in fact, just from everything that, I know, it seems like they want to know, especially coming into politics, what you have, because the whole point of it is, has politics enriched you? That's the test. So coming into politics, you do need to declare what you have.
Okay,
right.
Okay.
Going back to your question, right? Who has to file? It says, so this is part 5 of the Integrity Commission Act. It says, subject to the provisions of this act, every person who on or after the appointed day is a parliamentarian or public official shall submit to the Director of Information and Complaints statutory declaration of his assets and liabilities and his income in the form set out in the 3rd schedule. So if you're a parliamentarian or you're a public official, you have to fill that form out.
Not private individuals.
No, private individuals do not submit that to the Integrity Commission. But
No,
however,
but there's
as I
a
was
salary
saying,
requirement. Hold on, there's a salary requirement, I think.
no, the salary requirement, it says that it shall, subsection 1, you don't have to file if you're in receipt of a salary of less than $3,500,000.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. It's only of a certain value that you have to.
So it only captures information for parliamentarians and public officials, and it must be if you're earning more than $3.5 million. Under that, you don't have to report. Now, here's going to your question about he was a private individual. What Zara is saying is that when the property was acquired, he wasn't a government official, but at some point he became a government official while still enjoying the benefit of that property. Now, the property was owned by the company, and the company is owned by him, right? And that's where based on the report I saw, that's where the confusion was. Should that be reported simply because the company owns the property and not the parliamentarian, but the parliamentarian owns the company? And that's where I said that this Integrity Commission statute, it has a lot of holes in it.
But here's the thing again. Let me go back again to what I started to say earlier on, or what I tried to relay earlier on, because this is a real comprehensive thing, right? I mean, I could have speak for the next hour about it, but just trying to be brief. As I said, it's a common business practice here in the US, right? Where everything is done through company, right? And if it is done through company, then it means that you don't have an income. Even if you own the company, you do have an income. You only pay taxes on income, right? So everything is done for tax purposes. That's why you hear they can say, well, for example, the Amazon owner, where's his name again? I don't remember his name now, but Bezos, right? That's why they can say Bezos don't pay no taxes, because in terms of his actual income, he doesn't have an income to show, because he's not drawing down from the company right? Because once he's gonna do that, then that's where the tax comes in. So usually it's done for tax purposes, right? And it was no different in this case, right? With him having a company that's offshore, right? And using it to buy a house in Jamaica, which means that, of course, it has nothing to do with his income per se, unless you can attach his income to the company, right? He's getting an income from that company. The fact that he owns it don't mean that he's getting an income from it, but he can live off it,
Patrick,
right? And avoid taxes. And
Patrick,
it's legitimate.
you know my approach to this. I don't want to try to explain it. I'd love to hear as much more of it as possible because
There's a whole lot more to it.
we don't know, so we can't explain it away, or we can.
No, well, I'm telling you, I happen to know quite a bit about it because it was something I actually looked into and got some training about, right, in terms of business, right? But I'm saying to you, right, that a lot of these practices you see now, they adopt them in Jamaica, right? I don't know what the business laws say in Jamaica, right? But as far as things like that is concerned, I know why they do it. They do it specifically to avoid the taxes, because that's where you find a lot of them can say, well, like Donald Trump can say, for example, you know, he doesn't pay taxes because he knows the tax system.
Well,
Right?
Patrick,
And it's quite legitimate for him to do it.
But here's the thing, right? And I think what happened, if he had answered, if the and I'm just speculating, if the opposition leader had answered Zara's question, the way things actually happen, I think he could have put it to rest. Because here's why: in the same act, and by the way, this act was, as I said, was spearheaded by the leader of the opposition, right? If you look at the definition of statutory declaration, it says a statutory declaration means a statutory declaration submitted under Part 5. What does Part 5 say? Part 5 say that you have to submit to the Director of Information and Complaints a statutory declaration of what? Your assets and liabilities. And what he's saying, his argument is that the house is not my asset. The house belongs to the company. So if you had answered it that way and just said, look, yeah, this is normal. It's normal practice. I don't own the asset. The asset is owned by the company. That's perfectly legal. Right. It would have been fine. But the fact that he doesn't want it, he hasn't answered her question yet, and because he didn't, she's asked more questions. And so she hasn't.
No, I disagree with you, Ratty. Can I disagree, please? I disagree with you. He did say that it's not my house. It's owned by the company, right?
Yeah, I've heard. Mm-hmm.
The question is, if the company is owned by the individual, should be declared, right? And therein lies the problem, because if you look at the statutory declaration form, and okay, I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about. If you look at, I don't know if you have question 10 available. Do you have it, like on the statutory declaration form itself? Do you have it?
No, I didn't bring that downstairs.
All right, I don't have it on my phone. You know, Herb just told me a while ago to jump on, right? So I jumped on.
No, go ahead, because we want to learn, you know. We want to learn, and we're going to defend and argue. And
classes in session, yeah.
So section 10, right, deals with the issue of trusts, where an asset is held in the name of a trust, right? But it says in the name of a trust or otherwise. And so you think to yourself, just as a lay person, or otherwise, does it sound like maybe the asset in the name of a company should be declared too, right? But Mr. Golding is saying no, right? And I'm asking myself the question, why not? Because another lawyer who looked at it said that they believe that section 10 could actually apply and could in fact be one of the areas that requires you to declare assets in the name of a company. And incidentally, the Integrity Commission, when I asked them, I kept asking them from last year, November 2022 or October 2022 in that region, after we got the statutory declaration form, I asked about that. I said, does the form really require declarants to declare assets in the name of offshore companies? Or, you know, where the offshore company is backed by the actual declarant. And they said that they believe that the form is sufficient and covers the all the kind of asset that is required in the context. This is where they get you, in the context of the Integrity Commission Act. So that's why I say it's a very unclear act. And the fact that Mr. Goulding had a reporting requirement from 2007 and had the ability to change the form such that it would capture more assets of public officials. Let's say if he knew, for instance, that it had a problem and it didn't require, or it was murky, or it was gray, or, you know what I mean, not clear, then amend it. If you're really about transparency, amend the form so that we can get more indications of assets of politicians that are backed, that are in the names of companies. But he didn't change that. And I asked him the question, why didn't you change it, since you would have known about any deficiency in the form? And because at the time, you know, he was saying in my piece, if you go to my website, you'll see it. He was saying in my piece that he would be in favor of amending the form such that the beneficial interest is captured, right? And I'm saying, okay, so you had the opportunity to change this from what, 2000, when you were the Justice Minister and doing this thing. Why didn't you change it? No answer. Again, very telling, you know, so it goes back to the question, is Mr. Goulding really being honest with the Jamaican public as he brands? It's like he's almost branded as this very honest guy. And that's the question everybody has to answer.
But
the
question I want to ask for you is, because one of the things he said yesterday, right, is he handed over control of the company to his children.
In 2021, right? And it's not
okay.
Control.
That's why I wanted to ask you if
over ownership. And therein lies a difference, because he and his wife are still the only directors of that company. And he said to me, I said, the children, are they directors? And he responded and said something to the effect, again, I don't have the piece in front of me, but something to the effect of, we will consider, or we may put our children as directors as they achieve certain professional or personal milestones, something like that. And I'm saying to myself, okay, so he's going to determine when these young adults become directors, but they are now shareholders. So doesn't that tell us?
But here's the thing.
Still control the company, even though the assets or the company, the shares are in the names of his adult children?
No, but here's the thing. Here's the thing about it. The thing about it is that there's a difference between shareholder and owners, right? If they're owners, then it means that that's exclusive. If it means that they're shareholders, then it's begging the question, then who are the other shareholders, right? But my thing is that if children are shareholders, hold on, just hear me for a second.
Important. He said in a quote, he and his wife, we transferred 100% of the shares to our adult children. I asked when.
That means then that they are owners.
In 2021.
Right. So since 2021, they are owners of the company.
He would say owners of the shares of the company. But as far as I'm concerned,
if it's 100% of the shares, they're owners. Yeah. They are the owners.
They own the company.
Right.
That's what it means.
Let us ask one quick question here, because Zara, I went through I'm looking at the definition of assets, right? Or the listing of assets. And it doesn't appear, I think it's a matter of interpretation, but it doesn't appear as if he's in violation. And I'll tell you why. It lists them here, lists 9 things. One of them, and I'll go down the list: savings accounts, current accounts, securities, real estate, other personal property, real estate mortgages, receivable and business investments, accounts receivable, automobiles, cash value of life insurance. Now, tell me which one of those assets would this situation fall under?
Well, aren't we talking about a house, a real estate?
Yeah, but he's saying that the real estate is not owned by him.
No, but you have to remember it was owned by the company, which was owned by Mr. Golding and his wife between 2007 to 2021. So if it is in my just layman's terms, right? I'm not a lawyer. I'll make that clear. All right. But just think about it in layman's terms for a second. Let's say the house is owned by the company and Mr. and Mrs. Golding own 100% of the shares of that company, right? They could argue, well, it's not owned by us, it's owned, and this is between I'm being very specific now, between 2007 and 2021, okay, before he transferred the shares. Follow me. So you go ahead and you say, all right, it's the company that owns this house, and me and my wife own the company. Now, what about the shares in the company itself? Because as you just pointed out a while ago, the asset list includes real estate. And I believe you said, didn't you say shares as well?
No.
Or securities, or it's what?
Securities. Securities. I don't know what the definition of that, but
can I say something here?
The list is savings accounts, current accounts, securities, real estate, other personal property, real estate mortgages receivable and business investments, accounts receivable, automobiles, cash value of life insurance.
All right, let's look at business investments. Would that work or no? Since you have a company, you own all of these shares and that kind of thing, and let's just say the company bought this asset, this house. What I'm saying to you is your interpretation can become very legal. Mr. Golding's interpretation can become very legal. My question to you all as the members of the public is, do you want this kind of strict legality for everything, or do you just want for everything of these politicians' assets to be declared and for the loopholes to be closed? And that's the reason that...
Let me answer that. I think most Jamaicans want laws in place to regulate behavior and declaration and assets and what have you. However, the problem I'm having with your argument is this. Prior to 2007, there was no requirement for him to declare because he was not a member of the parliament. He was not involved in political representation then.
Right.
He was not. So there was no requirement for him to declare. It's after he became active within the political process that he is required to declare. Isn't that true?
Yes. Okay.
So what is the problem then? Because he was not required to declare prior to 2007. He was not involved.
Right, but we're not talking about, even if he wasn't required to declare, okay, so the house was purchased by TGB, the BVI entity, in 2001, right? Now, when you come into the politics, let us say Rattigan were supposed to run for office, right? From my understanding, Rattigan, right? If you're a parliamentarian, you're earning over the 3 million realm and you're an MP. Now, to me, it seems like whatever you own as of whenever you enter politics should be declared. That's how it comes across to me as the intention of this act. Now, if you're telling me that the intention and the statutory declaration form does not match, or the statutory declaration...
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the requirement for him to declare was not in place prior to 2007. He was not required to declare anything.
Yeah, but Nita, here's where I think here's something I think you should consider. It doesn't, the way the statute is written, it doesn't say whatever you have before you become a parliamentarian, we're not going to count that going forward once you
Exactly.
become a
That is
parliamentarian.
that's
Doesn't
wrong.
say that.
It lump everything.
Yes, once you become a parliamentarian, whether you had it at that point, whether you get it that day that you become a parliamentarian, or you had it 10 years before, as long as you have it, you within that year, the first year, you have to declare it.
Yeah, but
But
here's where
yes.
it would make things hazy though. Here's where it would make everything hazy. Is that when it comes to declaration, it's not just a matter of stating you own it and so on. It's gonna mean that you're gonna have to supply some further evidence.
Documentation. Yeah.
Right. So when it comes to, and again, right, let me say this, when it comes to business, and particularly when you're talking about business with multiple owners and multiple shareholders and all of that, right? For you to declare, right, that business as part of your asset, that is what changes the whole dynamics. Because usually it's not considered much of an asset unless you're making a drawdown from it. Because even if you're sued, which is one of the original reasons why they had the law written certain way in the US. And like I said, a lot of what you see is copied from the practice in the US.
But Patrick, this is not an asset with multiple shareholders. That's what she's saying.
No, whether that or not, I'm not talking about whether it is one of multiple shareholders or not. I'm saying this is what makes it hazy. Because when you're talking about declaration, it's not just a simple matter of saying it. It's a matter of supplying further, evidence of ownership.
Okay.
Right? And I'm saying that this is where it probably made a difference, right? To Michael's point, in terms of what was applicable at one point and is not and has changed.
Isn't it a legitimate loophole then? Is that what we're saying? It's a loophole?
No.
It's not a loophole.
No, I'm not saying that.
I think it's a loophole. I think it's a loophole that should be closed. I think what I need to go back now and amend it to say, if you're the owner of or if you're a shareholder of an entity, whether it's incorporated inside or outside of Jamaica, and that entity owns property, and you own the entity, then we're going to attribute that property to you.
Yeah, but
that's different.
That's I've already spoken
because
to
that would be subject to what the Jamaican laws say. Yeah.
I've already. Okay, go forward.
All right, go
Patrick,
ahead.
let's hear from Zara now. Go ahead, Zara.
No, but I'm saying, Ratigan is saying that it is a loophole. And what I'm saying to you is two things. One, it may be a loophole if you look at it from the lens of Mr. Golding. But if you look at it from the lens of, let us say, another lawyer I spoke with, they don't believe that it's a loophole. They believe the form covers exactly what we're talking about. That if you own an entity that owns a house, you need to declare that you own the entity which owns the house, and that value is XYZ.
But that's not what he read.
But that's not required, though. That's not required.
That's not what was read.
That's not required.
That's what makes it a loophole, Zara.
That's what I'm saying. It's a loophole because it's not required.
What I'm trying to say to you is, I'm not telling you that I have a viewpoint on it. I'm saying to you, right, in this instance, that I spoke with more than one attorney who told me that they believe the form is adequate enough to capture the issue at hand, which is what we're talking about. Ratigan is an attorney too, and he's saying he believes maybe it doesn't. I don't know if he studied the form fully.
Is that Jamaican attorneys?
Yeah, man.
Jamaican attorneys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
and they're basing it on what? On the same thing he just read?
They point out are section 3 of the form, section 10 of the form, and I think one of them said section 9. Those are the places where they say they believe that could have been applicable.
I'll tell you what, Zara, I think we're probably going to have to table this for the next show and bring you in from the start and bring on a tax attorney in Jamaica, and I'm going to bring on a CPA too. That way we can once and for all put this to bed. All right? I think we need to do that. I think we owe it to Mr. Golden not to leave it up in the air. And I think we owe it to the public and to our very sharp listening audience who are very opinionated. We want to make sure that they have the right opinion. I don't want it saying that Holness and Golden are two of the same peas in a pod, because some of us don't believe that. We believe his intentions are pure. Michael, I know we're running over. And one last thing I wanted to ask is, were you aware of the Clark case and the Speaker of the House, Darimpo, and that she was being accused of selling this property in Montego Bay and not turning over any of the proceeds to the family? Were you aware of that about Miss Darimpo?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Were you, Zara?
Yes, I was aware. I don't know about the place of the land or the house or whatever.
Yeah.
The specifics, as you're saying, like the Montego Bay and whatever. But in terms of the general overall, yeah, the gist, yes.
Yeah.
I know about some allegation about that, and that the GLC at one point turned down an application by her to dismiss the case, something along those lines, I believe. So I think the GLC still needs to rule as to what's going to happen in her case.
They did not rule, and I think there was interference from the two main leaders of the GLP at the time as well, because it was brought to the attention of both the PM and the deputy PM. So what role, if any, did they play in ensuring that the GLC did not make a ruling back then?
I don't know about those allegations at all. The ones about, I don't have any evidence of that. I'm sorry.
Zara, let me just say something here, that I'm looking at Section 10, and that's why I'm saying this law is flawed. It has all kinds of problems because it's subject to interpretation. So what would happen?
Exactly, and that's the point I want to make. That's why I say I don't have an opinion in it. The opinion I have is that it's unclear.
Yeah, it's unclear because I'm reading Section 10, and Section 10 is it. When you read Section 10 and you go to the declaration side where they list the assets, it's very confusing, and that's why I was asking him yesterday, can you explain? But here's the thing. Here's a key point, though. Despite all of this, the Integrity Commission verified the submission. So they looked at it. They looked at it, and in their wisdom, they said, well, we don't see an issue here. So should that be the end of the discussion then?
That's what I'm saying. It just depends. It really depends. Whether it's Lass, whether it's Nita, whether it's her, whether it's whoever it is, right? It depends. What do we, the public, want? Are we good with it? And that's the question we have to answer. Are we good with the form it is?
And again, I think I said this at the beginning. A lot of these practices are set up to circumvent taxation, usually, right? But there are other reasons too why certain procedures are done, right? It's a practice in the business world, but it's not a widely known one, right? When it particularly comes to ownership and assets and distribution and how it is applied and how you draw down from a company, how you live off a company without paying any income taxes and all of that stuff. That's the reason why it is done like that. And a lot of what you see in Jamaica is what they copy from the US. And it's legitimate.
The more we delve into this discussion, it is opening up our eyes to even the Integrity Commission Act, because you can't fight corruption with unclear laws.
Yep.
If you're going to fight corruption, the law has to be clear.
That's my takeaway. It's not clear.
You can't.
Who write the law?
Mark Gordon, who wrote that law.
Right, these politicians write the laws.
Anyway, we probably shouldn't say that, because probably they might say the whole are right. Anyway, the main point is that, if we're going to fight corruption in Jamaica, these parliamentarians, when they drafting laws, they need to make them clear. And this is an eye opener for us. We thank Zara
No,
for.
Let me just say one thing to that though, last. The corruption that we really talking about in it is the corruption that actually break laws.
No,
right?
no,
That's
Patrick.
that's what
Patrick,
we're
no.
talking about.
Patrick, no. We're not talking about corruption that break laws. We're talking about corruption.
Law doesn't exist. Right?
Patrick,
What happens?
Patrick. A lot of that is why we close loopholes. If the law is written with loopholes for people to be corrupt, we don't want it.
I agree.
Right? And that is what we are saying.
I agree.
Right?
I agree with you 100%.
So those people who want to hide behind the hairy of the laws, we want to get to the root of that. So that when we say law, when we talk to these people and say you break the law so that the ordinary Jamaican can know, say you break the law. The ordinary Jamaican now have to go to 10 and 20 people, go ask them, why you think that this man break the law? No, we want it to be clear for everybody.
Absolutely, and that's precisely why I say what I say as it pertains to the Constitution, right? The main law of the country, right? Because if you don't have an understanding, right, of what it is and what it does, right, then it serves no purpose.
So are we talking about
Zara, thank you for being here this afternoon, and enough respect.
Yeah, and for shedding some light on that, and I follow they call it
Zara, you're coming back to join us, right?
North
18 degrees north.
18 degrees north. Yes.
Yes, and for those who want to see the story, as I said, you can go to the website, globalreporterscaribbean.com, and check it out if you want to.
Zara, I'm thinking if you're available next week, Saturday, so we can clear this up. Next week, Saturday, between 2
That's Heroes Weekend, I'm supposed to be on vacation, but yes, I'm available because it's important.
All right, I'm gonna talk to you tomorrow. I'll call you tomorrow and make the
I must, in closing off this discussion, you see, I must say this: none of us on this forum are accusing Mr. Golden as corruption. We want to make that clear. The sentiment here is that there's some loophole in the laws, which he wrote. Okay? So that's the sentiment. Personally, I do not see an issue here. I do not see an issue. Why? Because the law is clear. He was not involved in the politics at a certain point, and therefore he was not required. When he got involved, that's where he should have declared this asset or what have you. But the Integrity Commission approved everything that he submit. You know, so
remember though that the Integrity Commission, in all fairness, doesn't audit these things. It will say that there's a certification that it's been examined, that the declaration has been examined, but it also declares at the end it does not audit this.
Regardless,
as is the case with a lot of lawmakers don't actually write the law, and they don't read it either.
Regardless, we are not saying that he's a corrupt politician. We are not saying that. You know, we know who the corrupt politicians in Jamaica are. Down the road, I'm not sure.
Zara will name the 6 very shortly, right?
Down the road, I'm not sure what, that down the road might change everything. But for now, and the impression I got from the interview with Rattigan that he did, he come across as a very honest person. And there's a certain honesty about him that you can't take away from him. And it is, when you compare that with wholeness, it's a different story. You know, I met all this.
I will just say that other people have different thoughts about honesty, and I don't think we should ram it down anybody's throat about who is honest or not. It's for each individual to make up their minds based on the evidence, what they think, you know, because
Correct.
everybody has a different level of standard for honesty, what it means to be honest. You know what I mean?
That's the operative phrase you use there, based on their understanding.
Based on their understanding. Based on their understanding. You understand me? So, brethren and sisters, I want to thank you all for another wonderful.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
All right.
And
Enough respect.
very popular in the audience here. Only some kind of 50-50, but they want to see you back. So that's up to
Zara,
Mike.
Zara, you're welcome anytime. Just let her connect us
And
because
bring us some of your stories too, some of your results, because
Yeah,
I love investigative journalism.
journalism. That's what we like. So
All right. No problem.
This forum is open to you anytime.
All right. Take it easy, guys, and thanks
All
for the
right, take
invitation.
care.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, take care, everyone.
All right, Pat.
And to the listeners, I want to thank you all for staying up with us, because early on we had some technology problem and we sort of sort it out. So bear with us. One last thing. I want you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. That is how we're going to build this movement.
And keep the discussion going.
Yes.
Right. Just put your comments in the thread.
The comment section. And we'll respond to it. Okay? So until next Sunday, stay strong, stay wise, and stay warm, because I gather the weather will be changing as we go into the coming weeks.
Where we are.
Okay. So, brother Patrick.
Yeah.
Take
love, Michael. One love.
Best for the rest of the week. All right.
Yes. Take care.
Yes, I am. Cool.